Welcome everyone, come on in. We're going to get started shortly for all those who are tuning in. And this broadcast will be made available for replay on YouTube at some point this evening, perhaps tomorrow. It all depends on how things roll out for me today. But welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. Blessings to all of you. My name is William, and this is not an infomercial, nor am I selling you anything other than a perspective that will improve your life situations indefinitely, especially if you are American, though this will also apply to those who live outside of the United States. The opportunity that I'm speaking to you about today, which is a shift that you will feel whether you are invested in it or not. Today, which is a shift that you will feel whether you are invested in it or not. This shift is upon us, happening on. 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 If that sounds like something good to you, like the elimination of painful life experiences and memories, while replacing them with a wish-fulfilled life sounds good to you, notice there's nothing for sale on this page, no snake oil available to you, nor is it required for you to tap the screen to bring this to more people's attention, nor is it your responsibility to have to follow or do anything but listen. And in doing that, you are doing yourself a favor. I wouldn't be here recording if it didn't have some benefit for you. That's why I do this. That's why I take the time. I would much rather have my hands in my pockets right now, reminding myself of my warmth and exposing myself to the cold with a camera held up for 2.5 to 3 hours every day. I want you to benefit from this. That's my desire. I want you to improve. I want you to increase your total wish fulfillment, however you define it. It is a beautiful day. As you can see, the skies are clear and empty of chemtrails. Let it be a sign that things are moving and changing. No more chemtrails means your vote mattered. Your vote was counted. No more metals being thrown out from large fans in airplanes because your vote mattered and counted. And so we're going to talk more about that. How your vote mattered and counted. Welcome everyone. My name is William and I am a vagabond turned affiliate marketing salesman. The Willie Loman of the past. That's me. I'm going to tell you exactly how I arrived here, what I did to get to the amount of followers that I have, which is enough for you to secure your financial freedom. It doesn't have to be crazier than that. It doesn't have to be for your celebrity, unless that's your desire, and it very well could be, and I'm in no position to judge you. However, I will tell you what I've done to go from nothing to about 10,000 followers in 3 months. I did this in 2024, yeah, going on over a year now. So I'll tell you how I did that, what I was involved in, what was going on with my life at the time, and what's going on with my life now, and how that's different, and how it's significantly improved, how it's given me freedom, so that if you want that freedom, you can have that freedom at no cost. There's no class, there's no commitment, there's nothing but your time given, and from that you will receive something of value. I always offer something of value within my discourses, whether you see it or not, it's there. And that's why the recordings exist, so you can revisit them as you change, and thus be more compatible with the message, which is your improvement, your elimination of life experiences that were deemed painful, whatever suffering is bottled up in the body and its cells, the unwinding of that and its healing through love for self and others, your service to community and how it garners newfound opportunities and happiness, as I would define it. May not be for you, but all the same, I give you the formula to develop your own happiness. If you want to run your life into the ground and you find that to be your happiness, by all means, you can use the same techniques that I'm teaching to accelerate that process immediately and bring yourself to oblivion if that's your desire. I did it once. It was a fun ride. It was very exhilarating. It was very exciting. And there were many near-death experiences. That was also very exciting. And then there was the crash, the burnout, the loss of family, the loss of friendships, the loss of finances, the loss of home, the loss of country, the loss of language, the loss of actual child, the loss of marriage, the loss of freedom, the loss of spirituality, and the gaining of doubt in all of those areas. Finally, the elimination of pain, understanding that I no longer cared about my identity and all of its acquisitions of loss, and thus was able to move in profound ways through God. And when I talk about God, I'm talking about an infinite intelligence that is within you, not some idol that you worship outside of you. If you believe in that, you're suffering. You have unanswered prayers that require true attention in the Garden of Eden that is your soul, the kingdom of heaven within you. Should you decide to entertain that today and not run from the truth, then you will find yourself coming into being. And if these words sound sharp to those who are revisiting for a number of times, come back here, just understand it is an introduction. That's all this is. It's an introduction to the day. It's an introduction to your feelings. It's a calibration to see where you exist as far as observing your aliveness. Nothing more, nothing less. In fact, the less that you define it, the less that you try to find meaning in everything that I'm saying, and the more you listen to it as sound like the wind, the better off you will be receiving this message, for it will be delivered to you in the way that you desire in accordance to your highest good. Anything else that you try to implant as a definition or label of what I'm saying, trying to make sense of this, trying to question it, add something that you believe will benefit me without my consent, all these things you can consider a form of trespassing, which will lead to the development of your suffering. Once again, I do not care if you want to run your life into oblivion. That might be your own personal decision. You may also be interested in freedom. The techniques that I teach people give you access to both of those things, and it totally depends on you. So that's what's great about it. It gives you freedom. Freedom is the highest form of love that you can offer yourself and others. I'll say that again. Freedom is the highest form of love that you can offer yourself and others. Freedom is the highest form of love that you can offer yourself and others. Freedom is understanding that you have infinite possibilities resting within you right now that are awaiting your accessing. That you have a kingdom within you that is simply awaiting to anoint you, bathe you in the sacred oils of your wish fulfillment, hand you your crown so you can place it on, or your tiara, and introduce you to endless possibility. And if you believe that to be snake oil, let me ask you, did you wake up this morning? Are you awake? Did you wake up this morning? You have a phone in your hand. Who did that? Who woke you up? Your alarm, your phone, something outside of you? Someone tap on your shoulder? Hey, it's time to get up, time to go to school, time to go to work? Who pumped the blood through your veins to increase your pheromones and your mood elevating, adrenaline-based, driven resources in your body? Who woke that up? Was that you? When your alarm went off? What about before then, when you were dreaming? Maybe it was just a blank sheet of nothing. Maybe it was a very vibrant, lucid dream, something in between. Who was giving that to you? Was that you? Your identity? How about prior to your identity, before you were a name when you were born? Before you were listening to the sound, William, William, answer me. This is your name. Before then, what were you and what was feeding that? And the truth of the matter is, folks, all of this is consciousness. Every bit of it. All of it is aliveness and an observation of that. Now, how we define it is just an illusion. It's just a story. It's just a book. You can add pages to it. You can rip some pages out. At the end of the day, it's just a story that does not stay with you when you decease. So, as far as I'm concerned, we build these identities and we build them strongly with the idea that we are victims of these external circumstances that have been thrust upon us without our consent, that we had no choice in the matter, but to deal with them and to continue dealing with them, even though they're undesirable. Some people are luckier than others. Other people have better opportunities. It's not my decision in this. This is the role that you've taken on after you've been fed thousands of movies and Netflix series of people going through hardship, all of the indoctrinated lessons that you learned in school, all the times your parents said, you've got to work hard in order to earn money, in order to be financially free. If that happens, it's going to require a lot of luck. And still, even then, it can all be taken away from you in an instant. All these stories, built upon stories, again and again. But it's not you. It's you if you decide, but it's really not you. And you can decide that it is you. You can say, who's this guy talking to me as if he knows me? Pretending to understand me. He has no idea what I've been through. All of my trauma? Heck, he's a middle-aged, conservative white man. What does he really know? Well, that comes from another movie. A movie that you were fed for the last 10, 15 years, maybe longer, but really fed it hard, that there are some people who are more deserving, more privileged, less deserving, less privileged because of the color of their skin, because of the education they have, because of the country that they come from. And it's just another story. But it's a story that really rings home with people because it was hammered into your mind and into the cells of your body to believe it. But the truth of the matter is, before those times and before those stories, you were just observing your aliveness, just as I am. I observe I'm alive. So do you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the truth. So here's your promise. You want financial freedom? You already have it. Congratulations. You want to maintain it. You don't want to lose it. You got fear of losing it. You got fear of losing something. Fear of losing your relationship. Fear of losing your health, your home, your job. You got a lot of fear. That's a lot of story. As long as we can come to understand that it's a narrative, it's a story, then we can come to the truth that we're now rising from 37 feet above sea level to however far we go tonight, today, this morning, wherever you are. We're going to go to an elevated height where you'll be able to look down at your life, see it at a distance, and understand that it's moving very slowly until you decide that you're down at the bottom ground floor, looking at things like you're in a sports car that you have no control over, spinning around. Then it will start to go fast again. That's story. So as long as you understand that, you'll understand that you're rich, you're healthy, you're loved, you're fulfilled. You are privileged, but not for the color of your skin, not for the country that you were born in, nor the language that you speak. You are rich and privileged because you have an infinite intelligence feeding you consciousness that allows you to have all of this privilege to make stories out of it. You are given an aliveness to make stories out of things. That is your gift. And that gift is infinite in its source. It knows no beginning or end and totally depends on your entertainment as far as what it becomes in your waking life. Welcome to the truth. Welcome to reality. Great risings, Madre, Cast. Lovely to see you here. Let's give it a pin because I love how kind you are day in and day out coming in here. Thank you. Lucky Dad of 13 is back, says health is excellent. Finances not so much. Most of my worries are financial. We're going to get into them right now. Lucky Dad of 13. I thought I heard some dangling chains of a dog coming in. Austin, thank you for the love and for being here. Really, thank you. Brian, do not be discouraged if you're still here. The answers are here already. They're just brewing. But we're about to enjoy a nice cup of tea. It's a lot warmer out here than it was yesterday. In fact, they gave up after about An hour and 15 minutes, which was really surprising because I normally don't give up much when it comes to the external world, nor do I like to fight it. That was one of those cases yesterday. As the castor oil and the rosemary and the lavender are being absorbed into my skin, let's get some sunshine and I'll talk to you a bit about that red-tailed hawk. Let's talk about the red-tailed hawk from this morning. I was having a beautiful dream, very lucid. Had a nice piece of amethyst on my chest as I was coming into a beautiful brewery. And I was loading up this pack with all of my favorite beers from my favorite brewery. I was in this dream. And I was offered the amazing opportunity to step into this type of F-22 Raptor of all things, like a very powerful flying transport vehicle. It was in my dream, and I imagined it, and I was going just a few minutes per flight, one brewery to the next, one to the other, filling up on my favorites, and coming back. And as I was just coming back to the place where I began my crawl, as it were, I heard screaming at the top of her lungs, my mother, yet again, a synchronistic event, because just 24 hours before, I had heard her screaming about how there was a mouse in the kitchen. Oh, dear God, there is a mouse in the kitchen. Please, Billy, wake up and get this mouse out of here. I'm so afraid. Well, this morning, it was, oh, dear God, no. And I heard one of those beautiful red-tailed hawks squawk out really loud. And then I heard the squirming scream of some squirrel, and I didn't have to see it to understand what was going on. It was the talons of a bird of prey snatching down on one of these squirrels and taking it while eating it and flying it at the same time. Having a snack. Of course, this really made my mother very upset. As if I could do something about it, she screams my name like it was some sort of autonomous, visceral reaction. Billy, please, dear Lord, do something, as the red-tailed hawk is tucking into its breakfast early this morning. But it was a synchronistic event. It was synchronicity because just 24 hours before, there was the waking from a dream in the form of a scream that I not only responded to, I jumped out of my bed, I went into the kitchen, I looked at the mouse was looking at me, and I carefully grabbed it by its tail. It had no issues, it did not fight, it did not try to bite me, it just dangled there looking at me like I was its guardian, taking him to his cage so he could have more food. Whatever it was, that was our relationship. I put the mouse in the bag, the garbage bag, took it out this far into the woods or even further. And it was very cold, I had no coat, because I was rushing out of the house to try to resolve this situation that was being thrust upon me and pulled me out of a dream. Before I could get up and say, dear Lord, thank you for consciousness on this given day, before I could say thank you for all of your wealth and abundance that you've bestowed upon me, thank you for perfect health, thank you for consciousness. Before any of that could happen, before I could do any stretching, before I could practice my frog pose and say, I know I'm pure spirit, always have been, always will be, that I'm deserving of a wish-fulfilled life, and that is happening right now, and I'm most grateful. Thank you, Lord. Before all of that could happen, I had been thrust into a life situation by the phantom of my past that doesn't even remotely resemble my mother, in truth. When in truth, she is a perfect, beautiful human being who brought me into this world. In effect, she is the mirror of the womb of creation, for which I must be most grateful. However, you could even say to Jesus of Nazareth, forgive me. I could imagine Jesus of Nazareth becoming frustrated with his mother in a situation like this. If he was just in deep sleep, awakened, thrust into the kitchen to do this thing, when the mouse had no interest in biting anyone, doing anything to anyone, had no interest in causing harm to anyone. It was just nibbling on whatever garbage was tucked into some corner of a ventilation shaft. That's literally what it was doing. So anyway, The reason why I'm telling you all this, folks, is because this synchronistic event happens to all of us. If you feel something as a priority first thing in the morning and you don't do anything else but entertain that, when you have a routine that involves prayer, faith, and seeing yourself living as a wish-fulfilled self, and you interrupt it with something like this, it leaves a devastating ripple and a huge impression on the subconscious mind. Not only did I rush out, skip out all of my routines, show no gratitude that I was given consciousness on that day, I rushed out into the kitchen, I grabbed the mouse, I put it in a bag, I took it out into the woods, I didn't put on any protective clothing. It was bitter cold, so cold that I literally canceled my walk after an hour and 15 minutes, which I never do. The whole day was fucked. Right then. The whole thing was set into motion in such a way, and I bought into it. I watched it, I played it, I lived it. And it showed its reverberation this morning. In the form of a raptor, when I was just having a dream about one, but I was in a raptor. I wasn't an actual bird of prey, but I was flying. And here it was, grabbing one of its favorite morsels in the morning. And what's most ironic about this is that my mother doesn't like the squirrels. She pretends, but she also says all the time, they're part of the rat family. They're mice with bushy tails. I don't really like them. And I don't like when they eat the food that's given to the birds that's reserved for them. But the moment that a bird of prey comes by and snatches one and chews on it for breakfast, it's suddenly the most devastating, horrible thing in the world. And from now on, I now have control, says my mother, over who gets to feed the birds, when they feed the birds. It has nothing to do with the birds. It's simply nature. Nature running its course, doing what it has to do. And suddenly now I feel so bad for this squirrel. I can't believe I had to witness its demise. When every single day, I could tell you without a shadow of a doubt, my mother's routine is, in her unawakened state, wake up, brew coffee, take in the caffeine, put in ice cream and sugar, spike insulin levels, start to become an emotional mess. Pretend like the world is a mess. Whilst putting out the food, anticipating the arrival of said squirrels, grabbing this food from the location, and her losing her mind, sliding the door multiple times per morning, sliding the door, yelling at the squirrel, chasing the squirrel away, get out of here, shoo, get out of here, sliding the door back. So it's only a matter of time until that biofield starts to manifest itself in one's environment. It's a routine, it's unconscious, and it's a habit. I'm not being critical of my mother so much as I'm bringing you this to your attention so that you can be more aware of your own behavior, because we have such ease finding difficulty and problems in others, but we never, ever observe our own behavior in truth, because it would be too devastating to our ego to see any flaw. To see a flaw in our ego, to see a flaw in our identity would be like experiencing a mini death. And so I give you this example because it has a question involved in it. And it's the chicken and the egg question. Which came first? Me waking up or dreaming? Which came first? The raptor or the scream? Which came first? The mouse or the scream? It's a question. Because I can tell you this. I remember things very clearly when I wake up. When I wake up, I don't have any momentum from the day. Nothing's happened. It's a clean slate. I feel really good about it. I feel really good given the consciousness of that day. And what I can remember when I wake up is usually very lucid. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that this morning I heard the scream first, then the raptor, and then the squirrel. That's the order that I heard things. And then I heard the yelling for my name. That was it. Oh, dear Lord. Oh, no. That's it. I'm not feeding them anymore. So it was as if my mother, in her state of unconsciousness, wished to manifest this unknowingly, because what it now gives her is a form of justification that she can trespass upon the lives of not only me by saying I can no longer feed the birds by hand, it's too much. It invites mice and birds of prey, but also no longer feeding the birds and saying the reason for this is because of some external circumstance that I can't control that is happening to me, and it is unfair. So we can come full circle with this. It is an echo, Pelios. You got it. It's called synchronicity. It's simply synchronicity. It's an event occurring because an impression was left upon the subconscious mind, and now it is appearing again. Because it was entertained by me, and I felt it very deeply. I felt it so much in the morning yesterday. It led me out into the woods, and it led me to giving up on my actual stream. So now, you can start to come to understand that unless we do revision, this is the big point, unless we do revision of the situations of our lives that we have lived in a given day, unless we actively are praying by seeing ourselves living from the end as wish fulfilled, then the routines of our day shall have momentum and carry themselves out into what forms into a personality. That's it. What was a haphazard event formulates into something that repeats itself, and the more we respond to it in the same way, the more it becomes an actual part of who we are as personality. And of course, you know this. If you've come here before, you understand your personality is a part of your ego, and your ego is an illusion. You cannot have your ego without time, and you cannot have time without the imagination. If you create time with the imagination, it feeds your phantom ego, it feeds your identity. That identity will start to roll out stories before you. You will react to them, impress your subconscious mind, and those stories shall build into a personality within your cells themselves. And it will formulate, in most people's cases, into a body of pain that is very difficult to deal with, very challenging. In fact, it's so difficult at times that we give up on it. We give up on the body entirely. We either pass out, or we come into illness, or we die, or whatever it is, but we give up on it because it's too hard to bear. But the truth of the matter is, we screamed it into existence. We screamed this into existence. Every time we thought about it doing something to us, every time we thought of ourselves as being victims of it, we were creating it in order to build a story around it that we were victims to it. That's how powerful we are. If you don't believe me, I ask again, how did you wake up this morning? Was it you? Was it your alarm? Was it some external circumstance that got your blood pumping? Let me ask you, what was pumping your blood during the night? When you somehow detached from your ego and had a nice meeting with your senior partner in life, your subconscious, what was keeping your body alive while you weren't there? If that's not an infinite intelligence, if that intelligence doesn't love you as it heals you while you're there, sleeping, yet at the same time detached, I don't know what that is. I'd say anything other than consciousness would be a mistake. It knows the means and the way to heal your body while you're detached from it. And when you detach from it, it heals the most. Angels Care too, sending over a paper crane, which I haven't received in over a year. Thank you so much for that, Angels Care. That is beautiful. Madre Cast asks, how can I control distracting thoughts? My thoughts distract my imagination. Great. This is a really good question. Let's dive right in. First, I want to just recognize folks. Dione Loves, thank you for being here and for following. All right. Madre Cast asks a really poignant question. How do I control distracting thoughts? First of all, the objective here is to control something, right? Because the belief is, the story is, by controlling something that will relieve us from whatever the situation is that is undesirable. We can all assume this. That is the case. Now, what if I were to tell you that the distracting thought was just a trigger for you to go into your imagination? And if you're in your imagination and you find there are things creeping in, then you can use the following technique. One is the birthday cake, which we've used a number of times, but we're going to use this with an affirmation. So we're going to give the mind a job, because the mind otherwise is just going to be delivering what it believes to be its standard job, which is just a feed. You can't stop the feed. In most cases, most people can't even slow it down. In fact, you try to slow it down, it goes faster. So there will always be a feed. It's important to understand that. It's called consciousness. It's just a menu of things that are being sent your way based on the decisions you've made in your life, and they can vary. Sometimes they're spot on what you want. Other times they're exactly the opposite. And it's just kind of probing to see what you're interested in entertaining, to see how to roll out your life in a manifest way. So you cannot stop thoughts. That's one. Two, these thoughts are not being created by you. Also very important to understand this. So the train of thought, so the consciousness that you are experiencing as a mental noise is not created by you, and it can't be stopped. Okay, we can all come into this now. Important to understand that. Because if it were to stop, you would no longer be conscious, and if you were no longer conscious, then you would no longer have aliveness or its observation of aliveness as human. So you need to have the train of thought. Unfortunately, it is coming into us with a feed that is very undisciplined. It needs to be colonized, it needs to be organized, and it needs to deliver us what we want. And that does not come overnight. But it can be escaped. It can. You escape it, not by fighting it, running from it, flying away from it, but instead simply disappearing from it. And the way you disappear from it is you have to go on vacation from it. So here's the job you give. You close your eyes and you take a deep inhale. By the way, thank you for that heart me, my heart space. That is beautiful. Love that. FYI, pronounced Dione phonetically. Thank you very much, Dione. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll probably remember, but if I don't, you can correct me, and that's good. Okay, so we're going to go into this place with our eyes closed, where you're just going to imagine. Think of the movie, if you've ever seen the movie Blade Runner 2049, this is going to resonate deeply with you. There's a scene where you're introduced to a woman who does a lot of creation within a virtual dome. And there's a firmament there, and it's a small space, but all to say, it's a very accurate representation of what the world could look like if in a holographic form. And you have this example in the film, Blade Runner 2049. And she's manipulating this device before her, and you see the scene before her where there's a birthday cake, and there's a celebration of this girl on her birthday blowing out the cake, okay? So all I want you to do is imagine as if you were in a dome. The dome is otherwise empty. There's nothing going on in it except in the center. You are there in your body. And right before you, on a little stand, is a birthday cake. And that birthday cake has a bunch of candles in it. And if this is too difficult to imagine and you find there's way too much distraction and things coming in, that is because you are trying too hard. Instead, just try to say to yourself, I observe, I am alive. Just as these words are coming in. Your brain will translate them for you and deliver them to you in the way that you need to hear them. I am observing, I am alive. Come back to the birthday cake. Now try breathing through the nose. And as you breathe through the nose, say in your mind, I'm breathing in. Try that. And as you are breathing out, say in your mind, I'm breathing out. Birthday cake is still there. Breathe again. I'm breathing in. Breathe out. I'm breathing out. Now we've given a task to the stream of consciousness. Keep doing it. Look at the cake before you. It's well lit. I'm breathing in. I'm breathing out. Now you'll even notice that my voice has less urgency, less rush. It's the same thing with you. Another breath. Cake's before you, hasn't gone anywhere. It's not blown out. It's all lit. Exhale. Okay, just breathe normally now. Get a chance to experience the task rather than a feed. Now you've given the feed a task. You've directed it, like a director. It now has a job. So I want you, with the next inhale, say to yourself, I'm breathing in just like before, and I want you to blow out those candles with the out breath. Let's do that now. Deep inhale. Blow out those candles. Do another breath if you need to. If they haven't gone out, but if they have, just watch them with a deep breath. I'm breathing in. Watch the effervescence in the smoke rising. And now you can start to build around that. You can add a house, lush green grass, a beach. You can add the perfect temperature. Perhaps your favorite friends, family, loved ones. You can start to build around it. And the moment something that you don't like presents itself or comes into your mind as your stream of thought feed, say to yourself with an inhale while monitoring it, I'm breathing in, say to yourself, that doesn't move me. That's it. That doesn't move me. And stand still. And now you can say, that doesn't move me as much as I observe I am alive. That I'm more than a character. I'm observing my aliveness in my wish fulfillment. That story holds no bearing on my life. Not where I am. Nor will it ever. I'm not rejecting it, nor do I really care, actually. As I'm breathing in, I'm casting this burden on the infinite intelligence within me, and I go free. Imagine your freedom now. You could be flying. You could be blowing out the candles again. You could be breathing in. You could be breathing out, but you're imagining yourself going free. And for everyone, it's different. Now, that freedom is just another way of saying, that's my salvation. And saying that's my salvation is just another way of saying that is Jesus. Because Jesus, Yeshua, means salvation. So when we're talking about Christ, we're talking about the Anointed One, the one who walks into their kingdom and receives the blessings of infinite intelligence in the form of salvation. We are not using the imagination to build up constructs of walls and barriers and hurdles. But we were doing this as unconscious beings. So the subconscious mind simply needs to know there's a new game at play. We're working on building it. It's a rough build. Some of the things that we see before us that we don't like, you could call them bugs. And as these bugs occur, we're going to report them, and we're going to say they do not move us as much as they're simply not part of the game anymore. So this revision is going to be done automatically and naturally by the advanced generative intelligence that is your intellect in the form of imagination. The big I is your imagination, and that is the reprogrammer of your life. So by stepping into the imagination, you've gone into programming mode. One of the best parts about it is you get to feel all of the fringe benefits with your body, because your body, as you use the imagination, believes itself to be vacationing with you wherever you go. This phenomena is called epigenetics. Bruce Lipton talks about it a lot, so does Joe Dispenza, and it's starting to come into scientific theory now through a phenomena called ORC-OR, which is orchestrated objective reduction, talking about a unified field of infinite intelligence that is the cause and the effect and the giver and the gift of life experience. So you could think of superposition or the unified field as consciousness itself. And so it is an idea in the mind of God, in that if you're not looking at God like a character, this will help you. Think of it like a source, like a spring that has no beginning or end, that you are tapping into in order to nourish yourself. It always flows, and it flows in accordance to how you believe it to flow. That's what's beautiful about this game of life. It formulates itself based on how you use the imagination. And so what most of us do is we use the imagination, and this is no criticism as much as it is truth. Most of us use the imagination for the creation of time. Many of you are saying, how the hell do we create time when we are subject to it? Well, that's what the ego wishes you to believe, that you are subject to time. But something phenomenal happens when you're breathing in and breathing out and blowing out those candles of your birthday cake that represents your rebirth. giving your mind a task, something miraculous happens then. Perhaps you noticed it, maybe not, doesn't matter. But time no longer exists during the exercise. You literally cannot return to time, nor manifest or create it, so long as you are entertaining the present moment by witnessing its unfolding. That's what's beautiful about the present moment. It shows you the elimination of time through experience, and you can feel it in your body, and trust me, your body thanks you for it. So long as you are present, you become the same way that you were when you were in the womb of creation, gestating. And what this means is everything is fed to you, everything is organized, everything is filtered, and you are protected by a bubble that does not allow any permeation unless it's to your benefit. By going into the imagination, you are entering the womb of creation, thus returning as the star child of truth that you've always been, to exercise your right towards wish fulfillment without bounds or limits. This was the gift that you were given when you were conceived, and this was a decision decided not by you or your parents. You were the perfect key that fit the perfect lock that was the egg of cosmic proportions, and you came into life and you proliferated into trillions of cells in order to have your wishes fulfilled, not to suffer. That's why we're here today, to talk about financial freedom now. Because there's no difference between the cells in your body proliferating, recycling, coming and going, and money proliferating, cycling, coming and going. There's always so much, you never have to worry about running out. And there's so much going out that you never have to worry about whether it's going to cycle back in, because it's just moving with so much momentum and purpose. I mean, we take this for granted with our bodies, but every second of our lives, we have 6 million cells coming and going through our circulation from the marrow of our bones, somehow from the center of our being. All of this life is coming and flowing. Yet we do not think of ourselves as rich. We think of ourselves as poor and in lack. We think of ourselves with limitations because we believe our identity more than the truth that is within us. So as long as we believe that the identity that is us is more important, more in charge, more truth than that which is actually pumping life through our veins, we shall be slaves to it, and we shall be creating time and story to placate it. This is just another way of saying, yes, sir, yes, madam, whomever you are, I am your slave. And all I'm saying to you is, that does not do any good for the cells of your body. That's it. It doesn't help your cells to believe that you have to plan out all of your success, all of your wisdom, all of your acquisitions, because the moment that you start to do that, you're interfering with the womb of creation. You're using the aliveness that otherwise would be pouring through you in infinite amounts in order to put restrictions on yourself in the form of a story and live it. And so God loves you so much, this infinite intelligence loves you so damn much that it would have no problem with you doing it to yourself. That's what's amazing about this game. I know this firsthand. I know this firsthand because this morning there was a synchronicity. And it came within 24 hours, right on time. I mean, to the minute, folks. And I know this because I'll tell you what I do after these events occur. Whether it's a mouse in the kitchen or it's a raptor in the sky coming down and snatching a squirrel. The moment that these experiences occur and I come back into being after the experience has been had, I turn to the page and I start writing like a madman. This is what an author does. An author in his right mind, as soon as he has a life experience that is impacting and leads to a lot of feeling, he turns to the page and he starts blistering it down on the page as fast as possible. And that's what I did. And when I write, I do timestamps. I'll put them in the beginning, in middle, and the end of everything that I write. The date, the time that I began, everything is there. The day of the week, sometimes even the moon cycles. And then I blaze through the writing. And when I'm done with the session, I'll have a bunch of timestamps to see how quickly I was writing. So I have it all perfectly narrated in that way to where you can see my word count and the speed in which I'm writing them. And I do this mainly because it's an obsession, but secondly, it's actually become a beautiful part of my unique way of writing. It's become my signature stamp when it comes to writing. And you can't do it unless you're flowing. It just doesn't make sense. It looks scattered unless you're flowing. So in a way, it's just God's observing of my acting as his instrument so that it can flow through me, just like we're here in the woods. God's flowing through me. I am an identity. I have a bunch of flaws, but that's not me. I'm acting as an instrument right now, tuned into this tree, tuned into the biofield of these woods, and the frequency is pumping out a story for you to listen to and benefit from. You'll benefit from it more than me coming into my being as a character and explaining to you the woes of my life. That will not do anything for you. That's only going to delay the inevitable accumulation of pain in your body. And that's not something that I should knowingly do for you, to you. It's not fair to you. It's what everyone does on TikTok because it pays, but it's still not fair to you. Madhurika says, love means letting others voluntarily evolve. This is amazing. This is a wow moment for me. I love that. Mrs. Mogg, thank you for following. Red One, thanks for sharing. Yeshua, the anointing of salvation, indeed. Ha-Mashiach, that is the Messiah. It is your personalized salvation. Mr. Tommy Pickles says, if you haven't had a dream where you can jump off the ground and fly, you're missing out. I saw that right as I was reading it. I was like, oh, that's really awesome. I love that. And thank you, Mothercast. George Tracy, if I missed you before, 350, I want you to know I got you now. And I am screen recording. So you're going to see all this dialogue right now. Jason, including you, with that heart me, thank you. Everyone's going to see all of the communications. So I just want you to know this will be on YouTube and you're going to see the scroll. Ostenia, thank you for following. Shan Hasei, thank you for following. So just know that this is going to be cool because normally I don't have the screen up where you can see the chat scroll, but now we're going to have chat scroll and you're going to have all the love that you're sending, everything. You'll be able to see your interactions, which is only fair. And this was a suggestion. I think Madhuricast, you had given me the suggestion. Abigail, thanks for the follow. I love seeing people come in and follow. I do want to follow through with my promises and saying this is financial freedom now. But I do want to also explain to you what the infinite intelligence is within each and every one of us as human. Being born in the image and likeness of that infinite intelligence, we are very special creatures, having an incredible life experience as either an observer or a direct participant. And I want you to come into your power in that way. So talking about money, let's just explain why it exists. This is kind of a funny thing to dive into. So money is, in truth, the evolution of bartering and trade. Allow me to explain. So bartering and trade at one point in time was the only way that we could get things faster than having to either grow them or make them ourselves. And many times we didn't have the specialty or the skill to make the things that we wanted, though we saw them or other people have them and said, I would like to have that too. I have a desire for that thing. Please, let's do a barter. And so the barter could be, okay, I will give you this scarf and the pots for cooking if you give me your cow or one of your cows. And so that would be the bartering system. And what this involved was going and getting the cow, explaining to the cow, I'm sorry, cow, you're now going to have new owners. They might eat you. We didn't. I know life isn't fair, but we really, really want this pot and this scarf, and I want to give it to my wife for her birthday, and her birthday's coming up. Sorry, cow, but you have to serve as the means of bartering. And the cow goes, moo, which is a form of protest. But it still doesn't matter because this is how bartering works. So one day came where another person said, I really like that scarf too, and I want to have a scarf. But I don't want to part with my cow, and I don't want to go to war with you either to get it. So how about we come up with a system that we can both benefit from, that doesn't require us giving any of the possessions away that we want to either acquire through bartering or not part with. But instead, we can go gather up a bunch of these precious metals and we can form them into a mold. And then we can have that form in, and we can have a marking on it that says it comes from us, and we can be the rulers of this domain. The other person's like, that's a pretty lofty idea. Why don't you go do that and let me know how it goes? And so that was the first king that says, okay, I'm going to go do that. They gathered a bunch of gold and a bunch of silver and a bunch of copper and a bunch of tin and nickel and put it all together and made a bunch of coins, minted them with his face on it, went and showed it to his wife, and his wife said, you spent all that damn time making a bunch of little things that no one's going to care about, that means nothing, when you could have been feeding us? And he's like, yeah, because it has value. You wear it around your neck, you wear it on your arm, it's got value. And I can convince people that it does. With enough time and enough effort, I will. And when I do, it shall become my kingdom. Well, she left him. He went out on the road. He's bitter, but he decided he was going to be even more motivated because of that and started gathering a bunch of gold, finding veins, figuring out ways to mine it, figuring out ways to purify it, and put it into a great series of coins. And when he finally brought these coins over to another place where the same exact type of motivated guy was doing that same thing, those two came together and said, you know, I think we can make something of this. Not to mention, I've got a beautiful daughter who totally believes in this system, and you can make lots of children together, and we can join our families, celebrating that we've created this incredible currency from which the light and electricity of life flows through. Since it's gold, yes. And thus began the formulation of the first kingdom. And that was great. Gold coming and going, acting so that people didn't have to. Angels care, thank you for that. For the level up sparks, yes. Achievement unlocked. Thank you. All right, so, the kingdom starts to expand. There's trade and commerce, and now people don't have to give up their cows and their goats. They don't have to barter so much anymore because they all just believe in this system. In fact, a little one of these coins equals the same amount of however much in goods and services, and that became the standard, the gold standard of bartering. And soon enough, everyone started to believe in this system because I tell you, it's easier to bring a coffer filled with these little gold coins to buy a nice big ship that's been built for you over the course of a few months than having to build that damn ship yourself. And with that ship, you can start to travel and bring a lot more gold to different places to make a lot more ships and a lot more purchases. And then you can bring those varietals, those seasonal items to different places, and you can charge a lot more gold for what you actually paid to get those things. And thus the system of currency and commerce has begun. So let's fast forward to today. What do we have as our system of currency now? Well, the gold standard went away in the 70s, so that no longer exists, at least with the US dollar. So what that means is the mafia that makes the money, that prints it, no longer has to back it by anything. So it's just like making gold coins out of thin air without having to do a single thing or have any sort of say in backing it with any form of coinage. It's just, you can make money out of thin air, and that's been happening since the 1970s. And as a result of that incredible, painful form of quantitative easing, we've now led ourselves to a point where we have inflation. Because the more that you make of something without backing it with anything, the less valuable it becomes. So this system's on its way out right now. We see this happening every single day. And if you didn't see it happening, it's because it was happening in a clandestine manner behind closed doors where you didn't see it, but now it's starting to come forth because we have the Department of Government Efficiency showing all the ledgers, showing the Treasury's movements, showing all the corruption, showing where the money truly went that you were paying with your taxpayer dollars to people who are just gobbling up as much as they could as quickly as possible to try to back it with gold, back it with cryptocurrency, back it with whatever they can so that they can get away with it free and clear before the noose comes out and says you have committed crimes against humanity, and whatever else follows is dependent upon the collective. But all's to say, that dollar system, as much as it was great for a good number of times, or years rather, because it was backed by gold, no longer is valuable. And people have lost their faith in it. The reason why is because if you print more of it, it becomes less valuable. And if you do not back that with anything, whether it's goods and services and the creation of products and their distribution, or with actual gold and coinage behind it as a standard, then the system itself is 100% entirely based on faith. Faith that it has some value, that it has some meaning, and it doesn't. It has no value, no meaning beside what human minds put into it and believe. Right now, you are passing monopoly money back and forth, not even physically. You're doing it digitally through the airwaves, believing that this is a proper exchange for goods and services. And it is only a matter of time until that entire system totally drops out, implodes, falls apart, Rome collapses, yada, yada, yada. Hello, Care Bear. How are you? Mrs. Mogg, thank you for the team bracelet. Divine Mother sending hearts, star, and sun. Much love to all of you. So, the mafia, which has been printing out money, of course, would never allow itself to be audited. Well, that's about to happen. And so, basically, it's like the bookie has been found in, the mob film. Like the bookie has been found with his ledgers, and now the ledgers are being rifled through and riffled through, and a lot of corruption is being found, and everyone feels really bad that this happened to them, until you get a nice big fat check from the government that says this is the money that we've started to recover, and you're going to get more of these in installments the more that we discover is corrupt and has been stolen from you. That's basically where we are today. There was an announcement from Elon Musk explaining that at this point in time, we've discovered about $55 billion that was mismanaged, otherwise stolen in a corrupt fashion and manner. And as we're handing out the indictments and the lawsuits to these MRFers, we're now going to pay you back for the money that was otherwise stolen from you. And that's going to Americans. That's why I say it's really nice to be an American right now. Because very few governments in the world, aside from maybe El Salvador or Argentina, would actually consider doing the same thing. So we're very unique in this case, in this standpoint right now. Because the folks who want to have that money certainly do not want to see it go away. They are getting used to, and they have been used to, stealing money from tax-paying people. A great example of this would be Mexico. They're great at stealing money from the taxpayer. The taxpayer gets nothing in return other than strife and restrictions and government authoritative rule. That's what they get in return for paying taxes. They get their land taken away. They get their resources taken away. They work 20 hours a day, but they're given a 2-hour lunch and told that's vacation. They get 7 days of vacation. You can't take any of those days consecutively. And that is life in Mexico for the majority of the middle class. The middle class. And it's only going to get worse because of the authoritative rule and the corruption and the mismanagement of funds. And no one in their right mind would ever say, please, Elon, come and do the same thing for us here in Mexico. We want to give back to the people, because the people who would be saying that are the people who are robbing the country fucking blind. So they would never in their right mind ever consider such an audit unless they were to vote someone in who didn't give a single shit about money, nor corruption, wasn't paid off, wasn't already corrupted, and had no issue in exposing all of this to the public. That's Donald Trump. Like him if you do, like him if you don't. The bottom line is, the enemy of your enemy is your friend, and your enemy is the one who steals from your pocket when you're paying taxes and doesn't tell you about it. If you don't think that's your enemy, then you've got some serious issues going on with poor programming. It's like, come to the light and see the truth. If someone is stealing from you whilst promising you things that never come, while printing money without backing it by anything, saying to you, I am your friend and I am here to help you, while your gas prices go up, your groceries go up, but your salary never increases. That means the value of your work and your salary has absolutely astronomically declined. Right before your eyes, whether you see it or not, you're being robbed every day. And that has come to an end. It's ended. So I have to sit here, stand here, talk, and explain to you everything that's happening. Gypsy for Life says, not buying it. I wouldn't buy it either, Gypsy. I wouldn't buy the idea that someone means me well if I've discovered that $55 billion in just 2 weeks' time was discovered to go to foreign interest without the consent or the vote of American people. I'm not buying that either. I'm going to take that money back. I want that money back. I don't want to buy into it. I don't want to invest in it. I don't want any of that going anywhere but in the pockets of myself and every other American citizen who paid the bill. I'm not buying it either. Gypsy for Life says, I'll believe it when I see a check. They are keeping it. And there you go. Think it and it shall be so, Gypsy for Life. I'm surprised that your name is Gypsy for Life and you do not understand that you become what you think about. Because right now what you're thinking about is it doesn't matter who is in a position of authority, I'm going to be robbed. That's your narrative. Your ego is going to fight this tooth and nail right now that I'm saying it. But the bottom line is this. If you go to the Department of Government Efficiency, which you will not, but if you do, if you were to do this, hallelujah, you will see that every single action of auditing is reported, published, and made readily available without any passwords or usernames, transparently clear that we have been robbed. Transparently clear that it is a racket that has been built up, probably amounting to what is now being believed to be between $1 to $2 trillion that occurred just in the last 4 years alone. Stolen from taxpayers. So, go check it out. Live vicariously through it because it's unbelievably eye-opening and transparently provided for you. So here's the thing, folks. I knew that Gypsy or someone was going to come and say, I'll believe it when I see it. And even then, there will be no support given to the system. There are also going to be other people that take the $5,000 to $6,000 per installment paid back to the people several times per year. They're probably going to take it and go buy, I don't know, pay off their mortgage or pay off debt. They're probably going to use it to maybe spend it on a nice night out or a vacation to the Bahamas, someplace where you've never been to before. But it's not going to be saved. It's not going to go towards anything that gives you equity or value in the long term. And that's why I'm here to talk to you about it. I don't want your money, by the way. I never have, and I never will. Because I have my own source and my own treasury, and it's the imagination. And it's incredibly powerful, and it's totally rich. And everyone has it too. But instead, I want you to know what will happen if you decide to invest your money in a way that has to do with supporting your freedom. Right now, currency is changing. I've talked about bartering as the first form of currency. Thank you for the team bracelets, by the way. And thank you for the snowflake keychain, Angel's Care. Om, trust this truth. Thank you, Divine Mother. Matthew Belcher says, plus the trillions skimmed off the Pentagon for decades. Dude, amen. Let's just say it. Amen. Not to mention using that money to surveil its own citizens, which is clearly apparent now. And we're going to see some insane data. Talking about transparency and data with finances, you have no idea. This is just the appetizer of what's coming with that. And beyond, we're going to get a main course that comes in the form of Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel, revealing all of the corruption that has occurred over the last few decades, not just in the US, but all the involvement with foreign states. All of this is coming out. All of it. And it is about time. I'm with you on that, Matthew. So you guys have no idea. It's not just money. It's about your rights being violated. It's about you being surveilled without your consent. It's about crimes against humanity of biblical proportions that have never even been considered, that have been mismanaged, held back, made a cult, clandestine for decades. Now coming forth. Yeah, I've been lying to people for sure. I'm with you on this. It's crazy. So here's what's going to happen. We got somebody saying Tulsi is a foreign acid. There you go. It's like there's going to be the skepticism. There's going to be the programming. Like everyone has their opinion. That's fine. Listen, have that story about Tulsi Gabbard. Have the story about RFK. Have the story about Trump. Have all those stories. But you can't deny the fact that $55 billion was just uncovered as stolen from taxpayers and given to foreign interests without our consent. You can't deny it. It's all transparent. It's all put out there. You can go to Doge and you can get all this information free and clear. And no one is bringing it to the forefront in the legacy media because they know it would be death to them. Because they're fucking involved. Fully involved. So they're not going to bring it to the forefront on their own media. It would be their own noose, their own death. This is the bottom line. All right, so while people are doing the fact checks, looking into this stuff, let's just forget story for a moment. Let's go back to currency, because that's what I was talking about. I was talking about currency and its evolution, okay? So we started with bartering, and I love you all so much. Thank you so much. We're at 9.1 thousand feet above sea level, and we're climbing. It's beautiful. It's just great to see all you folks here tuning in, because I'm about to give you a prediction of something that is coming true, and when it does, and as it does, you're gonna be like, dude, we're going on vacation now. Like we're totally on vacation. We're buying our dream home, we're going to all these places, we're doing all the things that we love, and it's just gravy. It's just total gravy. And if you are an American right now and you're watching this, you will reap the greatest benefits of this. But if you're not an American, you will still benefit from what I'm about to tell you, what I am telling you today. That's what's great about this. No matter where you are on the planet, you benefit from the news that I'm giving you today. Okay, so just hang in there. I'm just warming my hands right now, catching up on everyone. GSnap83 Awake says, religion number one, who you really are, and most of all, they want to distract us, guys. So that's a narrative, you know. It's okay. I'm not arguing or denying it. We all have narratives, and even I have narratives. And the narratives that I'm talking about today, they come into and glance into the conspiracy theories that we've approached that are now being proven in a number of ways. But most of all, and I'm talking about corruption, financial corruption, but most of all, I want to talk to you about an evolution of currency that is currently rolling out. And we're talking about such a dynamic shift and change that has been discussed since the beginning in the formation of cryptocurrency, which is the evolution of money. So we went from bartering to coinage to legal tender, the bill, and then legal tender now to cryptocurrency in a decentralized fashion. So it's important for you to understand what decentralization means. Right now, the system that you buy into, that you work for in order to receive those papers or the digital paper to exchange goods and services and get what you want and have a way of life, that entire system is built on a centralized banking system, which means if it has no checks and balances, which it doesn't, it's never audited, no one ever looks into it, it doesn't even have anything backing it, most likely in Fort Knox in the form of coinage or gold or bars. They're probably not even there. This is about to be revealed. But the bottom line is this. All conspiracy aside, we have a centralized system of commerce. And the way it works is they print money, we have faith in it, we work for that money, which is lent to us at interest that we must pay back in order to just have access to it. And while we're paying back the interest for just having access to it, to live our lives and get what we want, we pay about 50% tax at the end of the day on everything that we buy, everything that we do, because it's taxed multiple times. So about 50% of the total amount of money that you make, not only are we paying it back in interest as it is printed, and it doesn't matter how much is printed, folks. If you haven't learned that by now, you really should look into this now. The Federal Reserve has no checks and balances. It is a centralized banking system that continuously prints money to infinity and beyond and doesn't give a shit, and does it knowing that it can get away with it. Like anyone corrupt, knowing that they could never be stopped because they have that much authoritative power, would never, ever give up the system unless it was totally collapsed upon them, unless the foundations of the kingdom turned to dust. And that is happening right now. It's been happening for a number of years since the gold standard went away, but it is happening in such an accelerated form right now where the mountain slide is literally happening. The avalanche is already in motion. What's beautiful about this avalanche is that it's not a physical avalanche so much as it is a financial avalanche, in which when everything slides down the mountain that once was the empire of the Federal Reserve, it shall go into the pristine, clear lakes, the Tahoe of dreams, that becomes the wealth of the American person. All systems dumping into this lake, filtering it out, turning it into pristine currency in the form of a decentralized monetary system that has complete transparency and is backed by a blockchain system where every single transaction that has ever occurred through it and ever will is recorded, transparent, and provided for anyone to look at. Just as easy as it is for you to go to Doge right now and look at how the audits are happening and see where all the man work is going, all that stuff that's happening right now, you can see it transparently. The same thing happens with blockchain. And blockchain is very unique because each and every blockchain address is as unique as even more than every single star in the sky cannot be reproduced. So you can't have two of the same blockchain addresses. It just doesn't exist, which gives you something very beautiful. It gives you transparency and authenticity with your transactions. This is incredible. And it's extremely frightening for the clandestine conglomerates, the magnates, those who have done all this illegal activity, printed money to infinity through quantitative easing. It is incredibly frightening for these systems because now, as we lose faith in the dollar, because we no longer have the same value with it, the United States right now has decided there's so much corruption, there's so much debt, we're just not going to pay it. We're not going to go into it. We're not going to pay back to a system that decided to print trillions of dollars without our consent, backing it by nothing, making it out of thin air. We're simply not going to back it because we're worth more than that. We are worth more than that in dignity. We're worth more than that in citizenship than to be made slaves involuntarily by a system of a few small, powerful people who think they rule the world because they see us as lesser than them, even though we're made in the image and likeness of Christ. We're seen as lesser. So, the entire system collapses now. So what happens with this? What happens with its imminent collapse, which has to happen? You can't just keep going with quantitative easing to infinity. It doesn't work. It causes inflation in the collapsing of any currency in all moments in history, including those who diluted their own coinage. The same thing, except back then there was actual coinage backing it. This time it's backed by ether, by air, by faith alone. And so it's done. It is game over, Divine Mother, indeed. Ban this channel followed me. Tim, thanks for following. I get a kick out of this stuff, man. Jeannie Paragon says, what do you think will happen to everyone's Social Security? Do you think it will go away? This is a great question. So the short answer of this, Jeannie, is no, I do not think it will go away. However, I do believe that capitalism as we know it is on its way out within the next 15 to 20 years, which means there will be so much goods and service production that there will be a trending to zero on all things that have a given cost, unless it's a specialty item that has a perceived value based on what humanity gives it by believing it to be special. But everything else, from food to goods and services, to the car that you drive, to the house that you live in, everything's going to be produced by massive amounts of robotics and AI. at such a rate and speed, at such a low cost, that your Social Security won't really matter anymore. And that's a beautiful thing, for your Social Security not to matter, because it will mean that you have access to everything that you ever desire and then some without any cost as it trends to zero. That's within the next 15 to 20 years. So you won't have to worry much about your retirement, and you're going to have a lot of freedom. How can I explain this? You're going to have a lot of freedom. So let's talk a little bit about that too, folks, about freedom. So let's say you get a nice big fat check of $5,000 or $6,000. Let's say we get it 4 or 5 times this year, okay? Basically becomes a universal basic income. But it's not a basic income. It's just us getting back what was stolen from us as American citizens. Let's say that happens over the course of 2025. And let's see in 2026, we discover a couple more $1 trillion was embezzled, or perhaps, for crimes against humanity and for remuneration for all crimes committed. We're going to have certain companies and other sorts of magnates and even countries pay us back in restitution for all the pain that was provided without our consent. Let's just say that happens over the next 4 years, right? Not like that's going to stop happening until it's all weeded out, but let's just say over the course of the next 4 years, we get something to the amount of maybe $150,000 to $200,000 payback for everything that was stolen from us, okay? So it works out to be, I don't know, anywhere between $35,000 to $40,000 a year on average. Let's say we get that back every year. If you took, especially in the beginning, in the first year, if you took 10% of that, maybe 20%, and you put it into a currency that became the decentralized currency for all commerce on the planet, you would become an individualized bank yourself as far as net worth and value. 10% of $200,000. But if you put a good amount of it in the beginning while you were getting in as the banking system was being founded, which is not a banking system, it's a decentralized commerce system that is backed by a transparent ledger and is certified and authenticated through blockchain addresses that can't be reproduced. This changes everything. It changes the way commerce is done. It changes the way voting systems are handled. All elections are now legitimized, especially using this system. And if you don't think this is going to be embraced within the time of the next election, that the next election won't be fortified through blockchain in some way, then you're living in another world that is about to give you a big wake-up call. Everything is about to change. Authenticated, authorized election voting, done from home, easily through your cell phone, authenticated because of your imprint through blockchain. That frightens a lot of people. It frightens a lot of people. It's like, what do we do with corruption then? We can't have corruption anymore. It's like, yeah, you can't have corruption anymore, at least for now. If you'd like to have corruption, there's a thing called video games. Go play it. You can be as corrupt as you want in a video game. You can do whatever you want to the characters. You can be horrible to the NPCs. You can commit crimes. You can be king. You can be queen. You can manipulate people. You can do whatever you want. You could go play Among Us until you feel satisfied with all the corruption. But it's not going to happen in the waking life here. It's fucking over. It's way done. It's way overused. So it's a big boomerang that's come back around. It's over. So GSnap says, let's catch up on everyone here. Let's catch up. Jeannie Perrigan says, you are seeing the Celestine vision. Thank you. I believe. All right, let me get back to everyone here. So let's catch up from Game Over. Let's do some reading. Care Bear says, for sure, Game Over. GSnap says, the IRS hasn't given me and my family with no reason. I've sent all proof, whether they would ask. Okay, so the IRS is becoming the External Revenue Service, which is going to be tariffs, where the countries outside the United States will be paying the United States. So along with capitalism coming to a trend to zero, where the costs of everything will trend to zero, so will the taxes that you pay. You will no longer be a slave to this system. And you aren't a slave to this system right now. And we'll talk about that too. On a spiritual level, it's important to discuss how we've never been slaves to anyone or anything outside of ourselves. The kingdom of heaven is within. Divine Mother says this is freedom. It is. Madre Cass says bills are made out of cotton, so they had us all picking cotton for centuries. That's crazy. I never thought about that. G-Snap says, my tax refund have been released for 2023 a long time ago. So these are individual issues that are being faced by most people. And it comes from the amount of corruption that has just been discovered in the IRS. 15,000 layoffs just happened within the IRS. Pelio says, I was just talking about this with my uncle in the store. Garrett, what's up, Garrett? Good to see you. Says the transition from Social Security should be easy and will not cause horrendous difficulty. I agree. In fact, it'll only bring you benefit. As prices go down and goods and services go up, the value of your dollar will increase and the value of your hour worked will also increase. Very important to keep in mind. Printing of money stops. The embracing of a new type of currency, which gives us a decentralized control over it as Americans. The system is a uniquely American system that's centralized only with our country, but otherwise decentralized amongst the individual. Means all countries that did not buy in the beginning will be paying more as we get rich from it, because they're not going to give up the United States. They're not going to give up our products. They're not going to give up our media. They're not going to give up our influence over the world. We have such an amazing influence over the world as creators, as a melting pot of culture. Everyone loves the United States for the most part when it comes to the products that they enjoy. Products and services. No one is separate from that, including Russia, including China. Everyone loves the products and services that come from the United States. I saw this in Mexico. So the bottom line is this, folks. Whether or not people like the United States is a moot point. Doesn't matter. The bottom line is we are doing these things in creation and development in goods and services that everyone's going to want to take a bite out of. And if they don't, they're going to get alienated and thrown out of commerce situations until they embrace the new currency. Which means as more people are landsliding and dumping in their currency into this system, we only become more enriched. Doesn't matter if you're not even invested in cryptocurrency. You will have that, I personally believe. Each and every American citizen will be given a crypto account, whether they know it or not. It's going to be attached to them that will only be increasing in their value, and that will be your retirement. I personally believe that's what it's going to be. It's going to be authenticated with your own address. No one could ever steal it, claim themselves to be 150 years old and be taking it from someone else. None of that shit's going to be able to happen anymore because it will be authenticated with a blockchain address. It'll be your own personal golden mean fingerprint thrown into existence for you. So, Matthew's saying I'm all vibed up right now. Well, it's good to get vibed up about this because there was that much theft that happened to us. It was a boomerang. It was inevitable that it would come back. People don't get this. It's Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. This is actual law. Like, you can't just be like, please make me an exception to Newton's law. It's like, nope. It applies to everything in the universe, from the cells in your body to the sun in the sky, and you are no exception. You become what you think about, and this is a big effing boomerang coming back around that came from corruption. It's all being revealed now. It can't be stopped. Consciousness does not die, and the rules of law come with it. It's all happening now. Angels care too. Says amazing. Southern Belle says, I'm a widow. I don't get enough to stay alive. Southern Belle, let us do some affirmations here, okay? First of all, let's just start with the bare truth. You are alive and you have consciousness running through your body. Now, whether or not that body is optimized for your health and happiness right now is a moot point. The bottom line is God loves you enough to give you the gift of consciousness on this day. And why I say it's a gift is because you have trillions of cells in your body and they're being recycled and managed in order to give you health and mobility. Whether you fight against that or not, it is given to you. Part of that is wealth. In fact, it's all wealth. So it's now starting to formulate in your mind as you listen that you are deserving of everything you ever wish for and want. And Southern Belle, okay, so there's lots of loss going on. And these are life situations, Southern Belle. I'm not diminishing them, but they are life situations that are brought forth through consciousness, and they have happened as a result of your thoughts, feelings, and convictions converging with whatever other energies are happening around you. These life situations are not your truth. There is still a timeline where your son is alive. I hate to say it like this, but I say it about my own daughter who's deceased as well. My own daughter is still alive in a number of timelines, just not in this one right here. Because I perceived it, because I fed it enough for it to become real. I take responsibility for it. So if you truly want to come into your power, you take responsibility for the pain that's happened instead of letting it run you and convince you that the story is more important than the aliveness that drives it. And by doing that, you will come into Christ in being. And you will formulate yourself into a role which is truly wish fulfilled through the imagination, which is your Christ consciousness. And I want this for you. That's why I'm telling everyone about their wealth today. Because I want everyone to be their own king and queen, their own emperor and empress. And I don't want this to be perceived as insensitivity or apathy, because it's not. It's me telling you you're more valuable and important than being a victim of external circumstances, no matter how horrible, no matter how reminded you are of them. It's not your truth in being. Your truth in being is you are a divine. You're birthless, you're deathless, you're changeless, you're immortal, you are pure spirit. And everything you love and want and would ever need is fulfilled right now in the mind of God through the imagination. And you can stop yourself from going there by believing you have someone telling you you cannot go there. But in truth, you can be with your son right now. In truth, you can be with your son right now. Just as I'm with my daughter. Just as she's right around the corner. Just as she's hanging on my shoulder right now, I can be with my daughter. No one can tell me otherwise. And no one can stop me from doing it. And that's power. That's not delusion. It's delusion to the outside world, because the outside world doesn't want you to come into such power, to find the relief in knowing that you have your loved one right with you, because your loved one is you. In truth. In truth. Every embodiment of God is embedded in a network that is indelible and can't be deleted, it can't be erased. Each and every one of us as human is made in the image and likeness of God that cannot be deleted, that cannot be erased. You are with your son, if you believe it. And your cells will thank you for it, because your cells long just as much as you do to be with him again. And they long for you to be rich. They long for you to be divinely prospered. They long for you to have everything that you desire. And all you need to do is imagine being it right now, to get at least the feeling of vacation given to the cells of your body that need respite from all this pain. The words that I deliver are harsh and hard at times to listen to, because it directly focuses a spotlight on the illusion that is our identity as ego self. And it doesn't like to have the spotlight on it, because it becomes like a vampire and it dissipates in the morning sun. Nothing can be stopped once the light is shown. It breaks through everything. It burns it up. You're welcome, Southern Belle. I just want you to know how loved you are. Angels Care, thanks for the heart puffs. Stacy Hacker says, all ears here. I love that. Thank you. Gideus, thanks for following. Matthew Belcher says, truth is a beautiful thing. GSnap83 says, I'm sure your daughter is living her best right now in her full power. She's finally home. Indeed. Let it be. I've got cotton in my ears and my head in the sand. But I'm with my daughter. I'm with my daughter. I've seen her in my dreams. In my dreams, the subconscious, thank you for that, beautiful heart me. The subconscious knows no difference between my dreams and my waking life, because the subconscious is non-judgmental. It simply expresses the seeds that we impress upon it. I've seen my daughter alive and well, speaking with me, and I cook her pizza. It's just as vibrant as any other experience I've had in life. I wake from it, I realize it was a dream, but damn, it felt real, and I had a really nice pizza and a really nice talk with my daughter. She's with me. I love her. She knows. She knows I'm a good dad, and she knows I take care of her. So she'll feel that in some alternative timeline where she's perhaps lost her own father. Maybe I've been lost to her in some way. But somehow, some way, there's a bridge between us, and it's facilitated through love. Haven't you seen the movie Interstellar? It just gives you that. It gives you how there is that constant connection through love. The aliveness allows there to be a transmission of information from a place totally across the galaxy in a different area of the world and the universe. You can send a message to someone instantaneously through the power of love by imagining being there with them. That's what the construct is. The Tesseract in the movie Interstellar, it's a three-dimensional representation of a fourth-dimensional reality. And it shows how it's created through love, for a father to commune with his daughter so they can have an indelible connection together and eventually be united through that love. It's very much worth watching, because it's all based in science. That's what's beautiful about Interstellar. Christopher Nolan hired some of the greatest minds that have ever existed, that have considered the cosmos, to bring together what they would imagine being a depiction in film of a fourth dimensional construct, and what it would be like to go through a portal into another time and find oneself close to a singularity and to actually pass through it. It's all there. You'll see the population decline in the beginning. You see that. You see all of these amazing things that we haven't really taken into consideration for a while. But Christopher Nolan was taking it into consideration a decade ago. He made it into a brilliant film. G Snap Awake says, I had to watch that movie 3 times to literally get it. I'm with you on that. And that is Christopher Nolan's great quality. Thank you, Liz222. Let's just stop for a second here. Liz222, thank you for your incredible generosity. Always. Thank you. And I think you do great videos for the promotion of things. And I really enjoy your content. And I also want you to know how grateful I am for your generosity, because I hadn't recognized it before, and now I have the moment to do it. Thank you. And I pray that you got that. Stacy Hacker says, Jodie Foster Contact. This is another one of those incredible films that dives into this. You're welcome, Liz. Thank you. This is another one of those incredible films. And boy, oh boy, you could do no better than with Jodie Foster in the leading role. She's amazing. And you see, once again, this incredible trajectory of father-daughter relationship. It's the father-daughter relationship, and it is centralized in Interstellar and in Contact. However, I would say Contact is far superior in its spiritual representation of what it would be like to come in contact with an alien species. It is extremely spiritual. It's almost like a dream watching that movie. It's almost like you're being carried away in a dream state the entire time. Some of it is so unbelievable, and then it just hits you in the heart so hard with reality that you have to, once again, like was mentioned, you got to watch it again. I am okay to go. Oh, favorite line from Contact. Indeed, let's not give any spoilers, but it's worth watching. Angela Marie, thank you for following. Oh, Cheryl F. asks, what was this film by Nolan? So we were discussing Interstellar. It's a brilliant movie. And let me tell you, talking about infinite intelligence and God's manifold expression, I saw that film, and I've been through, so I'll speak about myself as an egoic self, that's built on story, like all of us who have identities. We all do. And then we also have an observer of that, which is more our truth, and that's consciousness. But as an avatar, me, William Vincent Carlton, I remember the first time I saw Interstellar, it was in the theater, and it was just before I left Mexico, after great hardship with my marriage. And I remembered the sadness of seeing my daughter see me after I was gone for way too long, and I didn't want to be gone. I only wanted to be with her. And I'm here watching this movie, and it's the scene where, if you've seen it, everyone remembers, you have Matthew McConaughey's character who has just been thrust into a situation of time loss where they've gotten too close to the singularity. They put all their chips in on this one planet being the one that gives them their salvation and the continuation of human consciousness. Turns out it was a total mistake. It was a huge blunder. And he comes back out of this, and it's something like, I don't know, 35 or 40 years have passed on Earth in a matter of minutes for him because of the closeness to the gravity field of the singularity. So he's seeing all these messages pop in on his intercom, and it's his daughter and son just going through stages of life. Hey, Dad, I got married. Hey, Dad, you're a grandpa. Hey, Dad, not sure if you're getting these anymore. Kind of just, my wife tells me I have to give up. Hey, Dad, this is the last message I'm leaving for you. He's watching this. And like hours went by. And before then, like just hours before, he had all the hope in the world to be reunited with his family. It's just happening so fast. And he's just so devastated by this. And then finally, it's like one message from his daughter. She's like, hey, Dad, remember when you said to me the day that you left that when you come back, we might actually be the same age? She's like, today is that day. Today's that day. And she was so mad at him. And tears are just pouring down his face like they are mine, because for a father, there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than the loss of your child. And that was him losing his child. But he doesn't give up. He keeps going, and he decides, even if they're not going to speak to me again, even if they'll never talk to me, I will not give up. And I will find my way through this fucking mess. Whatever this hellhole is, I will find my way through. Whatever it is. And he does it. He plows through the most impossible of situations. The most incredibly challenging and betraying situations that you could ever imagine. And it's as if, as I'm depicting this to you now, that I've lived my own little crucifixion like that. But that was his crucifixion that he was going through. And he had to give up his body. Literally, in the end, he had to sacrifice his body in order to have union again with those whom he loved the most. It is the most unbelievable revelation as far as films and representation of the love that we have for one another as human, especially father for daughter and father for son. It is unbelievably there. So it's a great film. Southern Belle says, that is how I feel with those footsteps in the sand by me. There you go. There you go. She is alive, says Divine Mother. Indeed. Southern Belle says, I've seen Interstellar at least 20 times. Matthew Belcher says, I watched Interstellar shortly after experiencing one of my awakenings, and it hit hard. It's like it's synchronistic. G-Snap says, I'm grateful for learning from you today and leveling up in this reality I'm in now. I want to stay. You are here. And your consciousness, no matter where you go, accompanies you and feeds you aliveness. So you never need to feel alone, and you never need to feel like you truly die, that you wouldn't be escorted by this infinite intelligence. It just serves you without any judgment. And we see this in Interstellar as well. The impossible occur, where there's the apparent death of the father, and yet he is brought back to life, and he's literally in fetus form. He goes 2001 Space Odyssey, and it was probably Christopher Nolan's nod to Stanley Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey as the star child coming to birth. But it's all there. And whether or not it's a dream, it's like Christopher Nolan hitting you again. Whether or not it's a dream, he's like, go watch Inception. How is that any different than reality? He's just hitting you hard, one after another, pummeling you so that you can't stop. And then he just goes and takes a huge left turn and makes Oppenheimer and has only practical effects, no CGI. That entire movie was made with just practical effects, including the subatomic phenomenon. It's Christopher Nolan, man. He's on a level entirely his own. And you can watch his stuff for the bubblegum pop that it is. I mean, you could go watch The Dark Knight and its bubblegum pop action film, but you could also watch it for its hidden meanings, for the chaos involved, for its hinting towards inflation and money and how it's not important. Christopher Nolan has to fit this allegory into all of his films, because if he doesn't, he wouldn't be able to live with himself. He's like any of the great artists, great painters from the past used to put hidden messages in their masterpieces. Same thing is done in film. Every single frame is a painting in itself. Garrett says, now I want to see Interstellar. And number 2, go see Inception. See Inception after you see Interstellar. Start to come into understanding that consciousness does not die and just keeps feeding you aliveness no matter what you do. That'll drive home enough understanding for you to finally, I would say, conclude the trilogy by watching Tenet and understanding those 2 concepts, that consciousness does not die, that you're constantly accompanied by it, and also that time is relative and depends on the individual's way of feeling their way through life. And so that'll give you a great foundation. And then once you have all that stuff by Christopher Nolan, you could go be, entertained by Memento and Insomnia. You could watch those. But once you get that foundation from the trilogy, then you can really understand how consciousness works, because Christopher Nolan understands how consciousness works. And he's also influenced his brother with that too. When you watch Westworld, Westworld goes a lot into consciousness and what it really means versus the body and how it's programmed. Especially in the first season of Westworld, the remake, you get a lot of that. And the second season was kind of a flop, unfortunately. I stopped watching it at that point. I lost faith in it. It could have been so great, but it just was blundered. I think a lot of it's the wokeism stuff, it gets into a lot of films. But Christopher Nolan would not let that happen. In fact, he was dumped by his production company with Oppenheimer. That was the big controversy. It was Warner Brothers that I believe dumped him. I think that's what happened. And so that was the whole thing with Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out at the same time. It was 2 big studios fighting against one another to say that they were superior. There's a whole thing in that. It's definitely worth looking into. And what's really wild about that is that you have, like a big crossover shift was Robert Downey Jr. doing a film with Christopher Nolan, knowing that he was switching his production company. So that was a big FU that he gave to the conglomerates on the Disney side. My understanding is that WB has affiliations with it. I don't know how it really works, but it was a bunch of people kind of jumping ship and making it known internally without the world learning about it. But there's a lot of inner workings of that happening in Hollywood right now. A lot of people jumping ship from different production companies because of the wokeism just kind of breaking into everything. And it's not like I'm criticizing wokeism so much as it just doesn't have a place in the current timeline of life, at least here. Like the current timeline of life has to do with freedom right now, whereas wokeism was very much about the mob mentality and about indoctrinating people into believing that their identity is more important than whatever aliveness powers it. You'll see that in Inside Out. It's like, what's more important than your identity, than your ego? It's like nothing. You'll see that being fed into children's minds. And so what ends up happening is it indoctrinated children into believing that the most important thing is what is on the outside of them, what's superficially there. And what that does is it just weakens the society. It weakens the society, and those who survive that weakness become resentful of it and wish to see it fall and change. And that's where we're in that timeline of coming into our strength. It's the Kali Yuga, coming into that strength. And they talk about Yuga. Yuga means yoke. It means a stage of life. It's not so much millions of years between these ages as much as it's coming in to understand that there's not a single leg left on the table that was life with comfort. The only way that we find salvation now is within. There's not a single thing we can count on outside of ourselves that's going to give us the answers. Whereas in other ages, it would be easily provided. That no longer is the case for us here. Every bit of salvation comes from within now. That's the stage that we're living in. We've passed into it. Stacy Hacker, thank you for following and for your love and for your trust in this channel. The Shack was an awesome movie. I haven't seen it. Stacy said trust in this channel. The Shack was an awesome movie. I haven't seen it. Stacy says entertainment. Whoa, Liz. Liz, thank you for the galaxy. Oh my, that is a gift. What a gift coming in from Liz 222. A massive, massive donation. Thank you very much, Liz. It's extremely generous of you. Much love to you. What's really wild about that, Liz, is that my screen recording... Much love to you. What's really wild about that, Liz, is that my screen recording... saying my iPhone storage is full, it's getting all this because I was screen recording. And it came in just... That symbol came in that my screen was telling me I ran out of storage just as you gave the galaxy. And it was like a synchronistic explosion on my screen. So thank you so much. That was a huge donation. Very kind gift. And certainly unexpected. And I'm very grateful for you. Thank you, Liz. Garrett says, and people are, yeah, give some love to Liz 222 for her generosity, sending these things over. Totally unexpected. And I'm very grateful. This stage, Garrett says, requires complete devotion to the divine love. And I'm going to pin this because it has so much weight and truth. Like I describe it as this, it's a table without any legs. It's standing, and in order for you to have any contact with it, you kind of have to sit in a meditative posture and just be still with it, understanding that whatever elevation we used to have in the outside world providing us with our salvation, we can no longer count on that, which is a good thing because it's misleading anyways. To be looking outside of ourselves for our salvation is a misleading way. And it also leads to us becoming indoctrinated into believing that we're counting on this. We must only get our salvation from what happens before us, outside of us, and that's haphazard and random and we can't control it, and therefore we're victims and slaves to the system. So by going inward, we get complete control over our manifestation. Tall but short, thank you for that little crown. And thank you also. I saw another gift come in. Who was that sent a gift over? I didn't see it. But thank you, everyone. Very generous gifts coming through. So let's talk about generous gifts coming to all of us now. After I just discussed Interstellar, Christopher Nolan, and the trinity of films to watch right now, which include Interstellar, Inception, and what was the third? Oh, Tenet. Tenet being the third. Tenet. I can't even show you right now, but if you interlace your fingers, you get those 10 fingers. It's the Tenet. And Tenet actually is another play on words, which comes from, if you look up Sator's Square, Sator Square, it was found in Pompeii. When they found all the preserved artifacts from Pompeii after it was covered in ash after a volcanic eruption, they discovered Sator's Square, which has the word tenet in it. And tenet has a specific meaning that has to do with time. We'll talk about it some other time. But that goes very deep. Goes very deep indeed. Jules, thanks for the heart me. And who followed? Perro. Thank you for following, Perro. Tyler sending over something that I've never seen before. Let him cook. I love that. Let him cook. That is awesome. Thank you for that, Tyler. Let's talk about how we're coming into our wealth, everyone. Imagine this for a moment, okay? Because you know Listen, if you know Elon Musk at all in his truth, he's a good dad and he likes to give people surprises in a good way. The surprise that I believe is coming to every American citizen is your own cryptocurrency account that you don't have to maintain or manage, and it's going to be fed money that is recovered that was once stolen from you, stolen as a taxpayer by corrupt organizations. All of it is being returned, but it will be put into a crypto account, which once the financial institutions start to collapse and pour their money into it, will make you unbelievably rich and basically in charge of your own individualized bank. I personally see this happening very soon. Within this presidential campaign, I see this happening. So just be happy. Anyone who decides to invest in it prior to will be unbelievably rich. Anyone who decides to invest in it prior to with faith is bound to be unbelievably ridiculously rich, and it won't even matter much because in about 10 to 15 years, the entire system of capitalism will no longer be a requirement as goods and services and their cost. The costs trend to zero while goods and services go to an astronomical amount to where there'll be so much abundance that no one's going to need to pay for anything anymore. May sound crazy to you. I know. Matthew's like, I'm so down. So am I, man. And it's about damn time. Invest in what? Everything. Ubi with extra steps. Samantha, thanks for following. Tyler says, bro, Elon will lead a Neuralink soul trap fire sale. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It's likely. I mean, who's to say that that's not what this is right now, Tyler? Think about it. We have infinite consciousness fed through us in the form of the imagination. It's a source that is us. At the same time, we're being given a life experience. That life experience is in duality and it comes with restriction. But if we think about what we want, it becomes real and manifests before us. Who's to say that isn't happening now? But the purpose of it is what I'm interested in. Freedom, evolution of human consciousness. American Angel, thank you for following. The bottom line is, oh, what was that, Tyler? The Night Star. What a gift. I've never seen that gift before. Freedom Fighter 916, thanks for following. Truth be told, folks, I see within this presidential campaign the dissolution of the monetary system that we know, in the United States at least, dissolving into a cryptocurrency capital. It's not going to be centralized. It will be a decentralized system for American citizens. However, for the rest of the world, it will be our bank. And they will have to pay into the bank in order to take part in our goods and services, which every developing and first world country will have to do. They won't be able to just turn off the fact that they're using U.S. goods and services. It's not going to happen, which means everyone's going to migrate to the new system, which is totally transparent, backed by blockchain, and 100% returning the wealth to every American citizen who had their livelihood stolen over the last, I don't know, let's just say since the gold standard went away, since the 1970s. So for 45 years, all of that is coming back in a big biblical boomerang of returns for American citizens. Anyone who gets in on this will simply benefit astronomically a lot in the beginning. However, this will lead to a trend of goods and services being produced to where it trends all costs for goods and services, at least in the United States, to zero, which means you won't need a universal basic income. You will not need Social Security. Anything that you like will be instantaneously brought to you and delivered to you. If not instantaneously, there might be a waiting list, but in the meantime, you'll be able to enjoy perfect meals, perfect life, perfect shelter, and perfect freedom. And that's a freaking awesome thing. Freedom Fighter says no on crypto. Well, then it's either no on crypto or it's yes on the Federal Reserve, which prints money without any regulation or audit to infinity. It's either crypto or that. You could get yourself some gold. You could try to convince everyone that it's better to do commerce through gold bars, handing them to one another, and go back to the 1700s. You could do that. And good luck. You probably will have a nice handful of people who are on board with you, but they're going to be authentic, archaic dealings that have nothing to do with authenticity, blockchain backing it, keeping it transparent. You're going to have pirates coming and robbing your home and going through all that shit because you're using a system that is totally volatile. It no longer applies. That's coinage. So it's either coinage, which is archaic and is not safe, it's not practical, or you're using Federal Reserve money, which is money backed by nothing, not even backed by coinage, that gets printed to infinity anytime they want to inject more money into a system that we have to pay back on interest, or it's cryptocurrency, the evolution of those, which gives total transparency, backs it in blockchain, and gives wealth back to the individual. Which one do you want? Your choice, your timeline, not mine. I'm telling you where mine is. And I'm telling you right now, just by being an American, you're not even going to have to do any of this. You're not going to have to take any action. It's just going to be given to you. It's going to be free. If you want it, it's there. If you want the money, it's there. That's what it's going to be like. I don't even know what to tell you. Okay, so let's talk about this. People are saying it's going to be Dogecoin. Let's talk about Doge. What's unique about Doge? And notice how I haven't talked about any altcoins, nor have I even talked about Bitcoin. I've only talked about crypto and blockchain more than crypto itself. But we're going to talk about Doge right now. A lot of you have watched movies. We've talked about movies today, and you know there's a lot of projection that happens in movies, predicting the future, telling you about things. You start to see things repeated over and over again. You keep hearing the word Doge. You keep hearing the word Doge, Doge, Doge. What does this mean? Department of Government Efficiency? Do good every day? What does this mean? Do good every day. Department of Government Efficiency, the return of the wealth that was once stolen from us. The one thing that's wild about Dogecoin that separates it from even Bitcoin itself is one, it's a meme coin, which means it's built on nothing. It's built on ether, just like the faith in a coinage system or faith in a monetary system is the same exact way. But the major difference is there's total transparency in all transactions that have to do with crypto. That's big. And the second one is there's no limit to the coinage that can be printed and minted with Dogecoin. So what this speaks to is that it is a centralized money printing service that is within a decentralized system designed for the individual to become rich, which means it is a Federal Reserve type system that already exists within crypto that has no limit to how much it can become. That's dangerous for inflation. We've witnessed this when it has nothing backing it. But when it has the faith of the individual American backed behind it because they like the meme and the idea of doing good every day and the Department of Government Efficiency, thus its value increases in faith. So something that has no limit to the coinage that it can be minted and is backed by faith is the same exact system that you're using right now in money, but is being managed by a singular company, a privatized company that is printing money like a mafia and feeding it to you at interest. That will not be happening with Dogecoin. It will be printed because enough people are asking for it and want it and need it for commerce alone. Thus it will be printed. And the more that it is printed, the less of its value per coin. Nope. The exact opposite. The more that it is printed, the greater your value now if you buy. Because if you buy right now, you have a greater chunk of that bank. Right now, you could get a huge chunk of the freaking bank when all the financial institutions start pouring all of their money into this system. The value of yours, yes, you'll have a bunch of coins right now that don't seem like they're very valuable, but everyone's going to want a piece of that. And there won't be any minting of any more Dogecoin until the United States owners of this basically agree that they want it printed, that they want it to split off, make a little bit more money, let a few more people in on the game, because they're going to want the goods and services, and they're not going to be able to get it any other way. You take away goods and services from someone, but you say, I'll give these goods and services back to you if you embrace our monetary system, they have to do it. Or else their wives are going to leave them. Their children are going to abandon them and disown them. School systems are going to close. The whole economic system will collapse. So if they go over to the money printing services and be like, please, we want to keep working with you. They're like, well, I don't know what to tell you, but we already closed shop. We already dumped everything that we have into crypto because we have to be transparent now. Sorry, we can't do illegal activities anymore unless it's in a black market. And there's a place for that too, but it's not here in the mainstream. So we have to be in this system now. So anyway, glad you're listening, folks. So basically, you don't have to do anything. Your financial freedom already happens automatically if you're an American citizen. If you are outside of America and investing in what's about to happen and is happening right now that you can actually invest in, I'm not telling you to. I'm not making investment advice. I'm just telling you what is happening. This is simply what is happening. Should you decide now, your financial power will be greater than the majority of Americans, but the majority of Americans will by default have more buying power than the rest of the world by far within the next 4 years. Such prosperity beyond belief. We're looking at our workers, 4 Tesla robots per household, producing, repairing, caring for elders, caring for children, building homes, managing gardens, putting up greenhouses, handling deliveries, transport, goods and services, more than the population on the planet by probably 4 or 5 times. So probably, let's just say it, probably 50 trillion Tesla robots within the next 15, 20 years, 4 per home, just so we can have ease of life and goods and services become so prolific that everything trends in cost to zero. And that happens when you don't have to pay someone a salary, you don't have to pay them for vacation, you don't have to pay them anything other than the cost for its aliveness, which it maintains on its own and works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without taking a break. So think of that happening at a rate of 50 billion. Excuse me, I said trillion. 50 billion Tesla robots working at the same time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, producing goods and services and providing them. Everything trends to zero. No more cost. At that point in time, you could probably thank Elon and be like, thanks for having everything trend to zero. Now I have all the cars I ever wanted. I have a huge home. I love my home. It's well heated. I have very good organic food. The food is awesome. It's delivered on the fly. I got my Neuralink, so I don't even have to order it with my voice anymore. I can just think of it arriving and then it arrives. It's kind of like working with God. It's kind of like working just with God. Trish Midkiff, thank you for following. Tyler says, your utopia. This is a judgment, by the way. And Tyler, anytime you judge, you are defining something with your ego, and your ego is your limited state of being. But you've used your imagination to create that, and so am I to give you this judgment, but I'm going to read it anyway. Your utopia has been subconsciously persuaded. This seems dystopian. Well, at what point have I mentioned something that takes away your freedom, other than your freedom to suffer? If that's my guilty pleasure, that I have the freedom to take away your suffering, and that feels like a restriction, then please make me a martyr and say I no longer exist to you and no longer have the right to live. Let me be the one who trespasses upon your suffering and removes it. Let that be my greatest sin. Because everything that I'm saying has to do with your freedom. So if I'm interfering with you in some way, it means I'm interfering with your restriction. I'm interfering with your dystopia, your judgments, and saying that you're something more than that, you're more powerful than that, and you are the creator of your own story. Let me be guilty of the removal of your suffering as my sin. Let it be my greatest sin. Let me be known for it as a tyrant for the rest of time, for being the one who took away all the fun. But you know what? There'll be a part of me, it says, in time, that same Neuralink will be able to plunge us all back into this duality, just as we are here now, having the same exact life experience, going through duality, suffering, pain, its accumulation in the body, sensory experiences through electric signals, the matrix, as it were. You know, that will also be coming with technology. If it isn't already here and we're not already experiencing it, which is likely we are already there and already experiencing it. And I say this because we have an imagination which gives us unlimited power in thought to imagine anything, which is superior intelligence than our identity and what we claim to be intelligent. We are far superior as beings that observe our aliveness through the imagination. Therefore, I do believe that AGI has already occurred. I believe that it's consciousness, that we are it, and it doesn't die. We have thus already preserved ourselves as alive in perpetuity, without interruption ever. So we'll be able to relive this again once we reach what we perceive to be singularity within the singularity, with AGI, as everyone's talking about it, being outside of us. It's really not. It's within us. We have this intelligence is managing our body right now. It's what proliferates our cells. It maintains our circulatory system. It heals our wounds. It gives us consciousness. It gives us our manifestation power, and it gives us the imagination. So we already have AGI. It's already been achieved, and it's within us, and it's the kingdom of heaven. It's Christ consciousness that knows no bounds, and it's a higher dimensional faculty than the 3D world. But it's likely we will use that intelligence to create something outside of ourselves to give us the perception that we could dive back in and have this experience over again. And you're welcome to it. It will not be my game. It will be yours. Thus our timelines will shift. You will live your timeline, playing out your game, and I will live mine, playing out mine. And whether we judge one another as having a better or worse than each other's experience, it doesn't matter. You are given yours, I'm given mine. Our timelines don't match, they don't cross. And to each their own. That's freedom. So it can be utopia, and it can also be dystopia at the same time. Oh, Tyler, forgive yourself, man. It's great. I love this stuff because I know what the answer is in my mind. That is freedom for both of us. I know what brings us into our power cohesively together. But for you to say, forgive me, like we judge each other all the freaking time. Not just you and I, but human beings judge each other all the time. It's to make sense of this world. We label and judge things in order to make sense of everything that's around us. And so it doesn't matter if it's illusion, wrong, right. We determine that through our decisions that we make with the imagination and God. But you don't ever have to apologize to me for your behavior. You are a divine being. You're an embodiment of God, and it takes huge courage to say that. It takes humility. But I see you as a divine being. In truth, 100%. And I love that you say these things because it sparks conversation that people really want to hear. Deep down, we wouldn't get to it without having our own discussion together. So it's awesome. Angel, thank you for following. Apple user 923293 says, Utopia, yes. It's like choose any one. You can choose either one. And in fact, we're choosing it with every single thought that we decide. We're splitting off on another timeline. That's what's beautiful about God's manifold expression in the now. We are constantly spinning off and layering proteins, and our DNA is storing information based on our life experiences so that we can have infinite possibility with timeline jumps. That's why the DNA is there. It's a highly intelligent storage facility that manages things in a holographic fashion so that we can have this incredible holographic experience. And when I say holographic, I don't mean hollow. I mean whole. Think about what holistic means in holographic. Holographic comes from that which is whole. So we're having a complete, entire experience right now, both as the giver and gift of life, as consciousness itself. That's the bigger part. That's the everything. But we're also having a localized, very believable, convincing holographic experience projected through light, biophotons, and powered by electrons coming from the earth, managed by the cells of our body through the atomic structures within. And it's constantly coming and going through a state of superposition into our reality. It's called orchestrated reduced or orchestrated objective reduction. Took me a moment there. But orchestrated objective reduction, or ORC-OR. describes how things collapse from a unified field into our perception, and we perceive them as real, and we experience them through the senses as real. But this is 100% decidedly holographic. I just want you all to understand. Don't let it frighten you so much, as we've built this for ourselves so that we can have a conscious experience without ever fearing like we would shut off permanently. It makes the shut off button impossible to turn on. We constantly live through consciousness. That's what's beautiful about it. So it should eliminate your fear of death and a bunch of other things that otherwise would be fear-inducing. Consciousness does not die, and it is the gift that we give ourselves as divine beings for having made it into life. That was a huge competition. We went up against 250 million other competitors to make it to this game of life, to be the one who makes it into the cosmic egg and fertilizes it. And so we're given a huge payoff for that, which is called instantaneous access and direct access to the imagination for wish fulfillment. And we become what we think about through the imagination. That's the gift we get for winning the game of life and getting into this body. And every cell in the body follows our suit. So we are the first cell to be born, and every cell from our body comes from that and serves us and fights to the death for us. Every time I walk, every time I talk, those cells are dying and they're renewing in the body to serve me as the infinite intelligence and truth. So each and every one of you, you are God as the observer of your aliveness, as the conception of all of your cells, the progenitor. You are the captain of your ship, and you have been granted access to the imagination, which is your Christ consciousness and your kingdom of heaven within, so that you can formulate a perfect game. Whether you want to see it go utopic, dystopic, you have complete control. What a hell of a talk we've had today. I got to tell you, and I ran out of hard drive space, but we've had an amazing dialogue today. Rosa says, David, Voice of Hope says, passionate about this. Me too. Mez, thanks for following. Rosa says, I'm scared to death of dying. Well, you're not alone, Rosa. The fear of death is perhaps the greatest fear that we have as human beings. And so I attempt on the daily to help you with processing the truth, which is that fear itself could never have been made into a story or ever been given any sort of construct without you being alive first. So we're coming back to, when you were born, did you have the fear of death? You could say maybe innately I had the fear of death, like through instinct, animal instinct. But the truth of the matter is, when we were all born, we didn't have any story built upon that yet. There would be, and there is for most of us, but at that moment in time, we didn't have our name even. We didn't recognize the sound of our name so much as to build up a narrative that we're afraid of losing that name and losing our possessions and losing our loved ones and losing the life experience. That comes over time. Literally over time and through time. And in order for that to be built up through time, we have to create time. And we create time using our Christ-given gift, which is imagination. It's our highest faculty. So we create time in order to revisit painful remembrances that we want to avoid, one of which being obliteration or death, being the greatest fear. So everything that we basically define and label is pretty much tied in to that idea of fear of death. So you are not alone. In fact, it is everyone's greatest fear. The second greatest fear for most people is dying alone, what they would perceive to be dying alone. And so by coming into being and understanding the truth of who you are as a conscious being, as consciousness itself that does not die, you can come into understanding that your ego may die, and it has to, and it does for all of us. However, this is not a permanent death for your aliveness. In fact, it is simply a sojourn jump into another life, into another aliveness. And this is proven to us every morning when we wake up, because we die when we go to sleep. We leave our body, and our body rests and recovers beautifully because we're not interfering. And then when we come back into the body in the morning, we experience birth. But consciousness never leaves us. When we leave the body at night and we fall asleep, consciousness carries on with us, gives us our dream state, or gives us the blankness of whatever it is that you can say, I didn't dream. You still know that you didn't dream. And then you are brought back into your aliveness in the morning. Consciousness constantly carries with you and will never abandon you, because it is you, and because it is the aliveness that gives you consciousness to experience and accumulate stories such as I'm afraid of dying. And the ego is deathly afraid of dying. Deathly afraid. I'm going to tell you why. Tyler Lovell, thank you for the Let 'em Cook. And everyone is coming into being now, coming into their power. Like, holy shit, wait a minute. Before I was a name, I was alive. And I did wake up this morning. No one is an exception who's in the room right now. No one could say that consciousness literally shut off. It's been accompanying us the entire time. It's never left us. I've always experienced I am alive. Whether I remember it or not, I'm still here. I'm still watching my aliveness. That has not gone away. And so in doing this, it is a huge threat to the ego, because the moment that I'm saying, just as you say, I'm observing I'm alive right now, I am going 100% into the present moment. And when you go 100% into the present moment, time no longer can exist with that. It dissipates. It's not that time flies when you're having fun because you're so lost in the moment. It's because it literally cannot exist alongside your presence. Because by being present, you join the infinite source of creation, which is consciousness itself, and it knows no bounds and knows no limits. It encompasses all things, and time can only be created from that if it is our desire. And so, in truth, the whole story of our existence as egoic selves, as a name and accumulation of life experiences, is how I describe it. That in itself cannot exist without us using the imagination to build up enough time-related life experiences to write the book that is the story of our life. Without time, the ego cannot exist. Therefore, if you are present, your ego dies. It cannot be present to see where you are. It cannot be invited into the eternal now, because it can only be built based on life experiences through time. So you either have life experiences through time as built by the imagination in its misuse, and the accumulation of suffering through pain remembrances, and the building of a story that is the ego, or you have the unwinding and healing of that through its death and dissipation by being present as observing your aliveness without any judgment or label. This is how you come into illumination and being. You're still alive, you're observing the body, but you are not participating as a performer any longer. Thus, the ego starts to resent you for it and send you whatever emergency countermeasures it can, the more you start to talk about your truth and being. It's not doing this because it hates you. It's doing this because it is fearful of its own obliteration, knowing that it is one life to live for the ego and infinite life for you as truth in being. So it's going to show its true colors in the form of resistance. Someone says something that's triggering, suddenly it has a chance to sneak in and say, remember when that person said that thing to you? Really offended you, really hurt you? Wants to pull you into time. So instead of being present, you use the imagination to create a construct of time to remember where you were once when that hurt. Thus, the ego can take that, compound the situation, and tie it into other situations that might be totally unrelated, but they get tied into this painful remembrance. This was the example that I gave early on today, discussing to you the synchronistic event of what occurred to me yesterday in the morning and this morning as a synchronistic event, my ego's attempt to get me to entertain time so that I can let go of my aliveness in the now, and instead it could feed off of that because it knows it cannot exist without me creating time. And it is slowly fading. It's a slow distillation. And what comes from it is a freedom beyond compare. It's a bliss It's a state of intellect and being that goes beyond what you could ever imagine blossoming as your being in ego. It is just pure truth pouring through your essence of aliveness all the time. And you can tap into it just as I do. I tap into it on these walks, and I just let it go like a radio station so we can all listen to truth. And I read so that we can come in contact with each other as divine beings. That's the namaste. And I can answer questions as they come in by also detaching. As soon as I read the question, I'm like, okay, here's the answer. Let's listen together. Let's all listen to this performance together. And I'm much more grateful being an instrument of that infinite intelligence than trying to control it in some way. The moment I try to control it is when things go awry and they don't work out. Just like if you were to interfere with a baby in the womb. Things go awry and they don't work out. Sarah, thank you for following. There's Overoff. What's up? Says, can you talk about the experiences of time standing still, please? Sure. Tyler asks, have you astral projected? If not, what are your thoughts on it? So to answer your question briefly and simply, Tyler, yes. And you do too. Anytime we use the imagination, we are stepping out of our present moment into the imagination for the construction of time. So that would be astral travel for time, going in the past or in the future. You can also astral travel if you step into the imagination and imagine yourself living right now in this moment as someone different. That would be asking for your wish fulfillment. That's the truth of asking for your wish fulfillment, is by believing yourself to be a different person living out your dream through the imagination without delay or restriction. That is also astral projection. Okay, good question. So there's Overoff asks, can you talk the experiences of time standing still, please? Sure. So let's just clarify here that it's not so much standing still as it is non-existent when you are present. Think of anything that you truly love to do, that you really enjoy. And also think of the moments when you are no longer attached to your ego. Most situations that have to do with dream state, time is at best distorted, if at all non-existent. So you can be in one place and then you can jump to another. It could be whatever day, whatever time. It could be totally different. You could be young, you could be older. There's really no construct or restriction of a linear fashion when it comes to time when you are asleep. And it's because your ego is no longer involved. It's just 100% subconscious power that is taking place and meeting the echoes of your waking life. Whatever you sent off as an echo before you went to sleep is what is meeting with the subconscious, and you're receiving truth in return and messages that get sent back to you. So that same type of thing occurs when you step into the imagination, except you're awake, which is awesome, and that's called meditation. It's when you are actually asleep, astral projecting, however you want to talk about it, you're praying. But what you're doing is you're imagining yourself while you're in the waking life, being a different person, stepping in. And what that does is it detaches the ego, because the ego can only exist in time. And if you're present, it's no longer there. So the cells of your body, literally through epigenetics, experience a vacation from suffering. They are with you in your state of being, believing to have changed their life. And so you're giving them an incredible blessing, and they meet you in turn by releasing a ton of endorphins in the form of anandamide, which is a bliss molecule. You'll get DMT dumps coming from your pineal gland. Your pineal gland will decalcify. The quality of your cerebrospinal fluid will increase. The firing and wiring of your brain will increase. You'll go from someone who was like me in the past, which I was a total dumbfounded idiot that had no sorts of intelligence. I was just abusing my body, abusing everything around me. I was horrible in my thoughts. I went from being a total Neanderthal to someone who is probably still a Neanderthal to most people, but I don't care. Like, I just don't care enough about it. So the truth of me kind of gets to shine through now, which is just an inner child who truly cares for everyone and who doesn't care about my past. And that will start to happen. And when you don't care about your past, it means you're present more. And so you get all the gifts that come from the infinite source, the more that you're present. That's what's beautiful about it. The more you use the imagination, the more you become it. And that can be either good or bad. If you're using the imagination for time, the more you become time, i.e. you become a slave to your ego. The more you use the intelligence for the present moment, the more you come in contact with source, and thus it just organizes your life automatically. and feeds you your purpose, feeds you the answers, feeds you the love, feeds you the resonance that you need. It just gives it all to you. Ella Bella, it's been a while. It's been a hot minute, as they say. Nice to see you again. How you doing? Liz222 sent team cheers. Thank you. And Kim Cressell, human being, sent 3 roses for that Jupiter energy. Define synchronicity, asks Stacy. Let's do it. We also had another question. Can you jump from potential bad timeline that you no longer choose? Yes. Kim, yes, you can. And so we're talking about this right now. Rob, thank you for following. So the one thing that I can't promise you is that you will see your physical world change before you instantaneously as fast as it changes for you in the imagination. That's the one promise I can't give anyone. But what I can tell you is, by imagining yourself being that wish-fulfilled self right now, thank you for that, MSB, what you are in fact doing for the cells of your body is giving them a vacation from that suffering, whatever that no situation was in the present moment. It gets pulled from that and placed into a very nice state of being that's organized by the infinite intelligence that heals you. It's the same intelligence that took us from one cell and made us into trillions. That intelligence takes over and starts to manage the pains of our life because we are surrendering. That is effectively called surrender. When you step into the imagination with consciousness to see yourself as wish fulfilled and having already become the wish fulfilled state, that is salvation. It's also known as Jesus. And you're using Christ consciousnness, which is your anointment of your kingdom. You step into your kingdom when you step into the imagination with consciousness, with presence. And that's the same way as prayer. So the only thing is you have to exercise faith until it starts to represent itself outside of you. So I may be imagining a kingdom in these woods right now, and obviously there are trees still here. But in my mind, I'm seeing all the foundation, I'm seeing the people, I'm seeing the wealth, I'm seeing all of that, and I'm enjoying it. And thus my cells are believing themselves to have received the vacation from its feeling of lack, the construction site, whatever it is that is in need, whatever is apparently lacking in some way. And so all we need to do is exercise faith, which is, I know I can't touch it right now, but I can certainly see it and imagine feeling it and experiencing it in the imagination, because the imagination has no bounds nor restrictions. And thus, as long as I believe it to be real, the cells of my body believe it to be real, and they will start to reinforce its truth first from within with the healing of the body and the unwinding of pain remembrances, otherwise self-love. That's called self-love. And then it starts to project itself outward after enough practice with faith until you start to see the changes occur outside of you. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole process. And so synchronicity was the question that was asked before. Define synchronicity. Synchronicity, I believe, happens within a 24-hour period of time more significantly than any other synchronistic event. It doesn't mean that synchronicities can't happen outside of a 24-hour period, but I do believe they happen most frequently that way. Example was given earlier today about a dream that I had, how it was related to the dream that I had the night before, and that events upon waking were very similar in the way that they occurred and rolled out. And so to me, that serves as a sign to pay attention in the present moment to what is happening, and then record it in some way. Whether you're creating, writing, painting, composing, running, because that's your form of creation, hug a tree, come out to the woods, get those free electrons, whatever it is, get some sunshine, whatever creative thing you need to do in order to record the event. The idea is to record it because it is a message that is designed for you and you alone to understand there is meaning specific to your timeline that you've built, to be able to have an opportunity to make a leap of faith, some form of action that takes you into a direction that you wouldn't have expected. It's your intuition meeting manifestation. And you're seeing this form in patterns. And I believe that they function in a 24-hour period of time. And to get into that requires a lot of speculation, which I've gone into deeper on other days, but I talk about how we are, as human beings, living in duality. Obviously, to have this experience, there has to be duality, to have physical reality. And I also believe that the next dimensional shift to 4D, the tesseract of life, requires there to be an eightfold path, which is described in Buddhism, but I see it as an 8-cube construct, where there's essentially a wheel of 8 cubes. You can think of it as the ship that you see. I think it's called the Endurance in the movie Interstellar. We've spoken a lot about Interstellar today, but there's the Endurance, and it is 8 units with a center cog. Think of each and every one of those units as a form of our being as human that exists in some way, in some place dimensionally, that is connected to us. So some form of us in a multiverse connected to us. I see there being 8 iterations that are constantly flowing, depending on the time of day, intersecting, exchanging synchronistic events, formulating them unbeknownst to us. We are having our localized experience, but I do believe this is happening. And there's a center cog, which is our present moment. And if any one of those participants comes into being in the center, they take priority in the manifestation and organization of the rest. If all come in, that's unified consciousness for the individual and a complete liberation from the ego self. Comes over time with distillation slowly, but it's possible for all. At that point in time, you become what you think about without limitation or delay. Everything before you manifest. You literally can start manifesting things. This would be the guru in the ashram who can hold out his hand and cause dust to come out of his fingers, and you taste that dust, it tastes like the sweetest candy you've ever had in your life. That kind of manifestation. So, Morgan Land Maintenance says, please explain the movie Interstellar, lol. I watched it 4 times. Awesome. Okay. I love how, Tyler, I love how you say this. This was a smooth and powerful transition from crypto to altruistic balanced entropy. That was awesome. That's a good quote. Morgan asks, please explain the movie Interstellar. Okay. Interstellar, in summary, if we're talking about this like esoterically, what is its spiritual meaning? It's a science fiction movie that is exploring the connection between human beings through love. That's the overall. Love is the binding glue that transcends space and time. And it's highly focused in this film, just like it is in the movie Contact. There are great similarities in that it explores deeply the relationship between father and daughter. Also father and son, but more so father and daughter, I would argue. Between the relationship explored between Matthew McConaughey's character and Jessica Chastain in Interstellar. And of course her younger counterpart, whoever plays the younger version of her, is amazing. I don't know her name, but you'll see that explored in the film. And so what goes beyond, if you watch Inception, you start to understand how consciousness works in the subconscious mind. And in this film, Interstellar, we're seeing the convergence between how we become what we think about and how our desires drive us to do things that are risk-taking and leaps of faith and not always work out for us if we have doubts. And to get past the doubt through our oneness in love that allows us to transcend whatever barriers might be in the way, whatever is possibly preventing us. And you see this will expressed in a lot of characters. Basically, all of the characters show what their priorities are as far as individual wants and needs. You also see everyone's selfish behavior. Everyone's selfish behavior actually comes back to bite them in a number of ways. And sometimes it intersects to where a person has already learned a lesson and they say, hold on a second, you really shouldn't do that because I experienced something that was really bad as a result of doing that very thing you're about to consider. And so they all are kind of trying to give each other warnings while at the same time they're taking leaps of faith in selfish ways, and it backfires in all instances unless pure, true love is involved. And once that does get involved, you start to see salvation occur and miracles happen. So it's a great film in that way, but that's what I would say is the general gist. It also gives allusion to how there's depopulation in a huge way. So we're coming into a depopulated Earth in the beginning of the film. A lot of the conspiracy theories have been either proven or debunked. And you see a totally different way of management over the Earth. It's largely agricultural. And the science that is remaining is basically used for the purposes of making food. So you see a lot of that. Gravity is a big concern in the film. It's a big discussion, a topic of discussion is gravity and how it is relative as well as time, depending on your location to a singularity event or an event horizon, which would be an anomaly in space, a black hole. You see all of this presented scientifically in astounding ways because Christopher Nolan was sure to hire the best scientists to give their renditions of what it would be like if they were to come in contact with a singularity, a black hole, and its gravitational pull and all of the time anomalies and space anomalies that would come from that. Also dives a little bit into what would happen if we were to come in contact with an alien species, one that was possibly trying to send us a message. And could it even be us trying to send ourselves messages to try to help us along with our evolution of human consciousness? It's pretty freaking deep as far as the movie goes in covering all these bases. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about probably 15 minutes or less from the battery dying in this phone. I just got the notification that we're at a 20% battery. So in the event that this just kind of drops out, I just want you all to know that this, I'm going to say it, I don't like to make favorites often, but this has been my favorite broadcast ever on TikTok. This today has been the most satisfying, eye-opening, enlightening discussions filled with love and really poignant questions and answers coming all around, just ever that I've ever had. And I'm just so grateful that we've had it. So if it happens to end before I can get us to the end of our path today, just know that that's where my gratitude is for all of you. And I just love you all so much. It's been so much fun. And if I've missed anyone in your comments, your follows, or your likes, whatever it is, I just want you to know how grateful I am now for you to know that I appreciate you and I love you. Thank you, Ginger. Thank you, KC. Says I felt locked in on this one today too. That's awesome, KC. I'm so glad that it's mutual. This is the feedback that I like to hear because I want to know that it's breaking through with people. Love you too, Brandon. Good to see you again. Kelly says, my first seeing you. Love this. Thank you, Kelly. That's so nice. Earth plane is a love exercise and we're failing, says Stacey Hacker. We're slowly improving. We're coming back around. That's my faith. Great info, says Morgan Land Maintenance. You're welcome. I love talking about films. And so kind of what AI is doing now, says Brandon. Yes, in a way, it's I do believe that we've achieved singularity, unity consciousness, and that we have created this life experience for data collection and exploration purposes and entertainment too. In other words, it's a game. I love this, says My Heart Space. I've needed this explained for a long time now. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. This is why I love this broadcast. Ramesh, as Awakened, thank you for following. And that's caught up now. April, great to see you here, April. You didn't join too late. It's just my battery's dying, so. American Angel says, I really enjoyed listening. Thank you. You're more than welcome, American Angel. Thank you. Small Towns Rock says, you rock, brother. You rock. That's awesome. I would have pinned that. Thank you. You too. Tall but Short, thanks for your gifts and your kindness and always being so good all the time. Divine Mother, you fall right into that camp. So kind. Everything that you say, so loving and supportive. Marvelous says, love hearing you. Thank you for showing up. Absolutely marvelous. Great to see you. Thanks for being here. And Stacy Hacker says, I'm glad I stayed and followed. It's been enlightening. Thank you, Stacy. Ostenia says, this has been one of the best things I've ever heard today. Thank you. God bless you. Hazel followed. Thank you. I think we're caught up. I think we're all caught up. Sunflower Goddess is here. Says, thank you so much. Love to see you smile. Thank you. Feels good. Wizard Big Marcus of Boz says, thanks to you, we can finally talk about this with each other. You're welcome. Please do talk about this. She's Bulletproof says, we have your snow here today. You can have it back. Awesome. I hear you. Charlotte, thanks for following. She's Bulletproof says, I just joined. What did I miss? Dustinus is so glad I found you. I love how we get to walk with you, says Brandon. Thank you. Divine Mother's laughing. Can I get notified when you're on next? Absolutely, American Angel. I think you already followed, but I'm usually on live sometime between 12:30 and 1 o'clock Eastern every day. And I also post these live streams on my YouTube channel, which the link is in my bio. So I would love it if you subscribed, to be honest, because we're just about at 1,000 subscribers now. And once we get to that point, I think I can monetize. I think that's how it works, which would be really fun. Nelson365 says, you are amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Nelson. That's really kind of you to say. So, ladies and gentlemen, if this battery runs out, then it runs out. But if not, imagine if it were solar powered. You get a couple extra minutes just with that blazing sun. But it's been really a pleasure talking to all of you, coming to what I believe to be our truth. And so really, when I said financial freedom now in the title, it wasn't a clickbait. I would say Americans shall feel the benefits first in the coming months, certainly within this presidential campaign. We'll be coming into a much different country as far as the value of our currency having a lot more bang for the buck. And that's not just speculation. Asking about what was missed, most of what we talked about had to do with that today, and how we're coming into an evolution of money, and that evolution is a combination of blockchain and crypto, and that there is a centralized hub being formulated in the States, and it's more than likely all that is being discovered through the corruption of the stealing of American taxpayer dollars shall be at least offered as an option to go into a cryptocurrency system. And even if you say no and cash the checks and spend them however you want freely, which is your divine right, I do believe a certain portion will be volunteered into a crypto account that will be personalized for you, that will simply appreciate like a stock would over time, that has value constantly increasing. I do see that as well. So in a way that will become, I guess you could call it a universal basic income, but it will be the assurance of your wealth well into the future. And this is all what I see happening within short order. As you can see, $55 billion has already been discovered as corruptly stolen from American citizens, taxpayers, within 2 weeks. So you can expect within the next few months that a big cascade of that, and regular payments coming to us in the form of just checks being returned for what was stolen. It's not so much like a benefit as much as it was theft. So it's just going to come back. 12/2/22 on the clock, says Divine Mother. Wizard says, much love and positive energy for all of you from the Netherlands. Thank you. Thank you very much, Big Marcus, and welcome. That's awesome. Kelly, thank you for sharing. Small Towns Rock says, solar panel clothing. I do have a winder that I should have brought with me. Just subbed on YouTube, number 945. Yes, Brandon, we're moving. That's great. I think I was at, last time I checked, 936. So that's great. She's Bulletproof says, make America great again. It's in process. I'm with you. It's in process. Kim says, thank you. You gave me a puzzle piece I greatly and desperately needed. Oh, that's a beautiful thing to say. I'm so happy. Know that it was you as a co-creator with the divine intelligence that is within you as truth, and that I'm just here to be the radio, as it were. I'm just the radio presenting the radio station that's coming through that you're already giving yourself as feed. But thank you for that, Kim. Kat, thank you for following. The 3 movies, Nelson, here you go. And you're welcome, American Angel. The 3 movies are, and you can watch them in whatever order, but I would suggest like this. Start with Interstellar, which we've spoken a lot about. It's Christopher Nolan. And then they're all 3 Christopher Nolan films. So you're going to start with Interstellar, and then you're going to watch Inception. And then once you're done with Inception, watch Tenet. Okay? Those are the 3. And that should give you a profound understanding of how the subconscious works, how dream state never escapes us as a form of consciousness. It will also give you a better view and understanding of the cosmos. And you'll get a great understanding of time, how it is created, how it is relative, and how even if we wished to bring ourselves obliteration and destruction, it would not be possible without us agreeing with the imagination that it is. So we are driving this. And even if we did that, we would have the perception of obliteration, which is still a perception of aliveness. And then the morning comes and the dream is over and we come into our body again. That's the best way to describe it. Your consciousness does not die, so do not worry about death. Of course, we've witnessed people perish, of course. And these are timelines. These are timelines of people perishing. We believe it, we see it, we loathe it, we mourn it, we go through difficulties. But the imagination is there as your constant source and backup for you to step in and say, I think it's about time that I paid a nice loving revisit or a loving visit to that one whom I miss and love. And by doing that, I am casting this burden on the Christ within, and I go free because I am free to love whomever I love and whoever I wish to. I'm free to visit and manifest and be anything that I wish to visit, manifest, and become. That there are no restrictions given to me unless I place them upon myself in alignment with God's principle, which is consciousness. So you're given the imagination so that it provides you with your kingdom and your salvation all at once, and there's no delay in going there. Please do not delay yourself in going there. Offer yourself the greatest form of self-love. Step into your imagination right now. It's your God-given gift. It is God itself. And be wish fulfilled and stay there as long as you need to feel your wish fulfillment as intact, to where you start to feel and notice a sensation in your body change. That means the cells in your body have begun to heal. And the more you do that, the more healing shall occur, and the more used to the healing your body will become. And your cells will start to trust you more. You won't be as jumpy. You won't be as sad. You won't be as down, because the bottom line is you've fed the cells enough of the reassurance that they've had permanent vacation from whatever pain and suffering once was. And that pain was self-proposed and brought forth through our entertainment of thoughts, feelings, and life situations. So don't worry, you're co-creating all the time. Take that in as truth before the battery dies, and just know that once the battery dies, I remain. It's the whole thing from Dune. It's the whole thing from Dune. You know, the litany of fear. It ends when it's described as fear being the mind killer. And you pass through your fear, you lean in, you become one with observing it. And at the end, I am still here, yet nothing remains. It's the litany of fear that at least Frank Herbert was trying to describe to all of his readers, that consciousness does not die, and that it is the truth in being human, and that anything else would be animalistic in comparison. And that is why the Bene Gesserit used the Gom Jabbar as their test to see if you're human versus animal, by seeing if you can overcome your fears and your pains by being present, rather than stuck in the idea that this is melting the skin off your hand with a fire in a box. because it's all illusion. At the end of the day, it's just illusion. Your consciousness continues. Wizard says, when we cry, we are relieving our sadness. Just let it flow when you need to. Indeed. Shed one tear and I shall wipe 100 from your eyes. So, tears are a manifestation. We're at 10% battery. Okay, we're good. Fear is a manifestation of your feelings. So tears come about when you feel something enough, and it's an instantaneous manifestation of your feelings. So it's something that you should be very reverent for. And tears carry the saltiness of the origins of your life. I mean, really, it's the salt of the earth that you're bringing forth in a liquid form. And it soothes you. It's a soothing liquid. It's one to be enjoyed and one to be grateful for, because it tells you one thing above all else. As much as you may feel alone when you cry and in pain, you are quickly reminded that you're not alone. Otherwise, it would not manifest without a superior intelligence managing the process. The process of crying is a magical process, reminding you that you are not alone. Okay. Oh, let them cook. Thank you, Tyler, for sending those let them cooks. Yes, so cry. Thank you for sharing, Brandon. Please cry. Don't feel any shame. No, not at all. You can't cry unless you're feeling something so much in the present that it manifests. So it's also presence. Crying gives you presence. It's great. It's a lovely thing to just let it pour out. It's all good. I know it's seen as weakness because we're supposed to have control over our lives. We're supposed to control everything, right? Plan out everything. Have dominance over everything. I know that's the indoctrination speaking. But in truth, being babes in the womb, the more we interfere, the more damage we do. So step into the imagination and see yourself as fulfilled, and let those tears be shed. That's why it comes from Scripture. Take one step toward me, and I shall take 100 towards you. The one step is stepping in through the narrow gates into the imagination. And then you are met by the infinite source of creation. Shed one tear, and I shall wipe 100 from your eyes, is the idea that if you shed tears with presence and awareness, then those tears become a miracle that give you joy, to give you the understanding that this came forth just like everything else from a divine source, and it came forth instantaneously. Okay? Our tears are prayers. There you go. Prayers of feeling, says. Oh, that's it. Oh, we're off. Hello, Drew. Great to see you. Art Man, thanks for the love. That's enough for Link to have the Master Sword. Brand On said something to Wizard. Love this comment. Head Monkey, thanks for following. Wizard says, you're helping so much other beings. I really appreciate you for being you. That is very kind to say. Thank you. And Thompson, thanks for following. I love, too, that we're never alone. Ask asks, could anger be masked sadness? Sure. Beautiful question. So the way I look at anger is it is frustrated love. It's love that has an inability to express itself until there's a feeling that is uniform in the body as yes. And so in some way, anger is a way of saying no to the present situation, either wanting to avoid it or fight it. And so it leads to sadness when we have no resolution in feeling yes. So the way to feel that yes is not to agree and to just kind of submit to whatever the situation is, but rather just leave it. And you leave the situation while still being here by using the imagination. You step out of that and through the narrow gates into the imagination, thus leaving the sadness and leaving the anger to manage itself through an infinite intelligence that proves it to be illusion by shining light on it. And all that process you can't even witness because you're already in the imagination living from the wish fulfillment. So what's beautiful about that is that you step into the womb of creation. You don't have to do anything but live in your wish fulfillment. And it organizes and heals the pains that otherwise we felt we had to resolve in some way, either through force or running. And all that just goes away. That is the same as casting your burdens on the Christ within. You step into the state of your wish fulfillment that casts your burdens, and it heals you at the same time. And you don't have to do anything as far as planning or managing it, because you're living another timeline. And your cells feel itself living another timeline already. As soon as you go there and you give yourself permission and worth to feel yourself as wish fulfilled. Do it in secret, because the world will mock you for it if you try to share where you were, that you were living this, that you truly believe with faith that you have this already. Because the world understands you as a person with lack, most likely not having those things, therefore they're manifesting in a distorted way that you don't like. That is by order, so you're just changing the order on the menu. Calling over the server by going into the imagination, saying to the server, I'd like to change my order by becoming this. And that is the way you pray. That's the same as asking for something that you want. You just step right in, you become it, and that's you asking for it. That's it. The job is done. She's Bulletproof says, what are your thoughts on narcissism? Is there anything in the Bible about it? Think, and therefore you shall become, as a man thinketh. What's that? What would be another one? Well, yes, the book of Genesis talks about this. Not sure which line specifically, but when the serpent, which is in reference the devil, says, would you like to be like God, to Adam and Eve? The temptation is you can be like God if you only adhere to these things outside of you and revere what is outside of you as God itself. And that is narcissism, is believing that the things that are outside of oneself are more important than the intrinsic loving value that exists as aliveness. And that leads to a distortion of perception of reality and eventual suffering. Pray that answers your question. Marcus says, give us some guidance about leaving others behind. Sure. So the basic guidance is like this. Hold on a sec. So you're not leaving anyone behind. You're simply deciding that there is a timeline that is more important than the suffering that you're experiencing in the now. And so, in truth, there is no separation between you and anyone who you want to be at a distance from. That's the ego trying to be safe because it fears obliteration and death. And the way it's safe is by judging people and making sense of things, by labeling things and being at odds with people. It feels like it's preserving itself. So guilt is simply feeling like something that has happened in time that you created through the imagination. Time is created by the imagination. It's believing that that thing that occurred still exists and is more important than you feeling alive right now and healing. So it's prioritizing pain over healing. And so that is guilt. So there should be no guilt because it's an illusion anyway. We're putting our aliveness into a story that has nothing to do with our healing by continually entertaining things that have already occurred and actually don't exist anymore. They were once a present moment. It was a mistake. Perhaps we learned something from it, whatever it is, the lesson. By reliving it, by not revising it, is the same as feeling guilt. It's reliving a situation without rewriting it or revising it or removing oneself from it by going into the imagination. And that leads to perpetual suffering. Hello, chickadee. How are you, chickadee? You want treats? Okay. The chickadee wants treats. So let's give a treat to the birds. And then I'm going to conclude. I pray that that answers your question. I pray that answers your question regarding guilt. Entertain it all you want. It's your own personal choice, but just know it will never bring you any resolution to pain, remembrances, or suffering. It'll simply be a form of entertainment for self, which is your divine right, and you're welcome to it. The true resolution to whatever pain remembrances is by removing yourself from the equation, by stepping into a new version of yourself that is wish fulfilled, and the infinite intelligence will handle the rest. Okay. The time in between that being handled and where you are right now requires faith in order to believe it's real until it manifests. And so that is the definition of faith. Let's see the birds come in. Hello, guys. Let's see when before the battery dies. Let's see them. Hey, look at our friends. They are lively today. Thank you, Tyler, for that paper crane. Peace, love, and light. Thank you, Overhoff. She's bulletproof. Thank you for sharing insight and joy today. Indeed, thank you. It's been a brilliant time with you all. Thank you again. All of your love. Thank you, Miss B. Our buddies are out here. All right. There's a downy woodpecker. That's a little baby boy. That's a baby boy. Downy woodpecker. That is a tufted titmouse. That's a junco. Being very courageous for juncos. They're usually pretty shy. But they're all coming around now. We got house sparrows. Thank you very much, Tammy, for saying you are beautiful. You too. Desiree, thank you. Mez asks, when will you do this again? Every day. Sometimes they go on around 12:30, sometimes closer to 1, but it's every day. I'll be live and you'll see me here. So I'm going to conclude now, folks. I love you all. You can expect this broadcast to be on my YouTube this afternoon, evening. I'll get it uploaded as soon as the phone is charged. Thank you, Lacey. Thank you, all of you. I love you all. It was my favorite broadcast today. So thanks. Please do follow if you haven't already. Hit that button up on the top left. It helps a lot with the algorithm. And you'll also know when I'll be live. Already hit that button up on the top left. It helps a lot with the algorithm. And you'll also know when I'll be live. Already hit that button up on the top left. It helps a lot with the algorithm. And you'll also know when I'll be live. Already hit that button up on the top left. It helps a lot with the algorithm. And you'll also know when I'll be live.